This conference will now be recorded.
So, hello everyone, welcome to our day 14 in our Google Cloud Platform Cloud Architect training. So, yesterday we finished till the compute option, the various compute options. We also saw a decision tree, all those things. Today we'll go through a quiz. Once we finish the quiz, we'll move on to our module 4. So, before we go into the quiz, we go to the quiz. Just wanted to show you this feature which you can implement in Cloud Functions. Yesterday I was not able to get it right. So this is a possible one. So where you can think of adding some intelligence to your Gmail. So look into this article where they use basically G Suite. Now it is called as Google Workspace. So any mail comes to this because Gmail is part of G Suite or Google Workspace. So you will be able to get those details of what kind of email, the content, all those things. Send it to Cloud Functions. So once it comes, you do some analysis and send it back. Change some attributes in your Gmail, in your email. For example, like this. If the email does not have a mammal, you're going to have a star. You make it a star. If there's a mammal in the email, then you don't make it as star. Simple option. So just to prioritize which one to focus on. So if it's a person who is focusing on birds, all those kind of stuffs, for them this is going to be a helpful thing. And this is just a small this thing like how you can make the emails more auto prioritization basically. So n number of use cases can be done. So it's just exploring your use case basically. So, and just for your information, yesterday did a small implementation where the requirement was we have not looked into those products, so that's the reason yesterday itself I did not share you this. So the thing which is done is something like there is a CSV file. They upload it to Google Cloud Storage. The moment it is uploaded, they wanted a Cloud Functions to trigger and dump it into BigQuery. So Google Cloud Storage and BigQuery, we have not explored much, but just yesterday I did an implementation of this sort. And once it is moved to BigQuery, the data which was there in storage, Google Cloud Storage 1 has to be moved to Google Cloud Storage 2. So was able to write I guess 50 lines of code in Python, and stuff started working very beautifully. So, and it's totally serverless. Only when you upload it, you should have it. Otherwise, if you were to have a virtual machine, you have a code. So where will the code run? It has to run on some execution, right? On a system, right? So if you have a dedicated system running and only once in a day you upload it, why do you want to have that system running idly, a virtual machine? So that's where this cloud function comes handy. So yesterday I was not able to get you this link. So, and it is in module 3, folks. It's in module 3. You should be able to look into it. So with that, let's go to our quiz, folks. And this is the final part in module 2. So in compute option, we have seen the various options: compute engine, Kubernetes engine, um, app engine, cloud run, and cloud functions. Whenever it comes to compute engine, the first thing which should strike is it's a zonal resource. It has, you can make it as look like a regional resource by using MIG. And for MIG, the key capability is auto scaling. How much it can scale, it can be the maximum is the project quota. Then if the health check is not working, the first thing which should strike you is firewall rules. So those are some of the important points. Snapshot, custom images. Snapshot has a scope of within the project. Custom image can be anywhere as long as it is a GCP project, you can share it. So those were something which we had seen. And Kubernetes, as a summary, if I were to give it, it is primarily relying on containers. Only if you can containerize your workload, you can deploy it in Kubernetes. And if you just need one container to be deployed, Kubernetes is not at all required. But if you have n number of containers and you need to manage them, uh, scale them based on the requirement, and you want to do auto healing, all those kind of stuffs, then Kubernetes comes into picture. In Kubernetes, one of the important stuff is if you were to provision a cluster, you're going to use gcloud. But once the cluster is there, you wanted to interact with that Kubernetes cluster, the powerful command which you're going to use is kubectl. So even there we had seen auto scaling capabilities, all those things, different types of auto scaling, one at the pod level, basically at the workload level, horizontal pod auto scaling, vertical pod scaling. We did not see that, but horizontal pod scaling is what is a mostly popular one. So we just saw that. Then at a node level, we saw node auto pod scaling also. And there's also something called as node provisioning. So node pool provisioning. So if a new node pool needs to be done, even that is possible. So we saw that. And from last week, we explored App Engine. App Engine, the focus is only on web-based applications. So web-based applications only. And whenever you think of App Engine, the first criteria you should look is whether the runtime is supported or not. So if it is supported, standard is going to be a good choice. If it's not in the list, you have to rely on flexible, which is going to be a little slow. As an alternative, we yesterday explored Cloud Run could be an alternative because it has all the features, it has all the capabilities. Only thing is that it's new, a product which is only 2 years mature product. So, and the last one is our cloud functions. Whenever you think of an event, when this happens, this should trigger, this should happen. So you can think of something like maybe the classic use case I would say is the moment a meeting comes, right, there's an invite in your calendar, immediately your phone should go to vibration mode. This is something which you can do with cloud functions. So you just need to use the Android APIs or your iPhone APIs and make sure you have read access to your calendar. Possible use case, right? The only thing is that the code. So App Engine, cloud functions, and Cloud Run, they primarily rely on the code first. So if you are comfortable writing code or planning to learn something, I would definitely say those things are going to be really helpful. But if your focus is more towards infrastructure, then virtual machines, and you wanted to focus on modernized infrastructure, then I would say Kubernetes is going to be a good choice. So that's a small recap. So I remember Kumar had mentioned, so whenever we finish the modules, if we refresh it or summarize it, it's going to be helpful. So I've summarized it. Now let's go into our quiz. Please everybody switch that chat mode to only me, presenter, or Mahesh, something like that. So don't put it to everyone. Change it to not to everyone, because everyone needs to think. So let's go ahead and 2 minutes only, folks. Every question 2 minutes. The reason is we wanted to simulate as if like we are taking the exam. Okay, and all these things are taken from the practice exams, all the GCP practice exams, not only from Cloud Architect. I would have taken it from network engineer, security engineer, associate cloud engineer, um, data engineer, whatever is relevant, I have taken it. So you should be able to see it in other sources, like the official sources also. Few which I have got it in my exam, I would have modified it and I would have put it here. Okay, so with that background, let's take the first question. So you have a definition for an instance template that contains a web application, exactly like what we did. Instance template is there, there's a web application, Apache web server. You are asked to deploy the application so that it can scale based on HTTP traffic. So the metrics, there were three metrics which we were seeing: CPU utilization, HTTP utilization, and stack driver metrics. So here it is the one which we only used. So it's a good one. So what we did in the demo, it has come up as a question: what should you do? This is a requirement. Go for it, folks. That was an awesome answer, instantaneous answer from Vivek. Go ahead. So let me stop the timer and start it. Go ahead, folks. 2 minutes. Anil B got it. Vivek, Anil B has got it correctly so far. Deepak Bhandari has got it correctly. 30 seconds over. One wrong answer. One minute left, folks. Two wrong answers. Aman got it correctly. Last 30 seconds, folks. Ankit got it correctly. Anil Kumar got it correctly. Last 10 seconds, folks. All right, time up. Let's go for an explanation. The first option, create a VM. So basically they're talking about templates, HTTP load balancing. What should you do? So the entire procedure is what they're asking. Create a VM from the template. Okay. Create a custom image from the VM disk, exactly like what we did. Uh, Export the image to Google Cloud Storage, which we did not do. Um, Create a HTTP load balancer uh, and add the storage bucket as a backend service. Now this, when you do it, it's not going to be of any use. The reason is the image you are exporting it to Google Cloud Storage. When you export it, right, it's going to be in a .tar.gz format. It's going to be in a compressed format. It's just in a binary format. You are uploading it to Google Cloud Storage. Uh, we have just slightly explored. When you add a load balancer, you can get two types of backend. One is a backend service, the other one is a backend bucket. So just adding a backend bucket as a storage as a backend service is not going to serve anything, because maybe they are trying to say the one bucket into which the image is uploaded, use that as a backend. Fine, if you upload it also, nobody is going to use that image. So it's a web application, so it should be serving content, static content, all those things. So this is not going to serve anything for us, except somebody if they want to download the image itself. So option A is of no use, and nobody mentioned that. So from that perspective, it was a good one. So create a VM instance from the instance template. Create an app engine in automatically scaling mode that forwards all the traffic to the VM. Now, the thing is that here there are two products used. So two different products. One is an infrastructure as a service. The other one is platform as a service. Some of you got confused with option B. So two products. Now, if you're going to use these two products, it's not going to work. So they're not going to communicate each other. So uh, two different products, first of all, is not going to work, and it's going to be again an expensive one. That's another thing. And even if you say, okay, let me ignore the cost, let me try to do it, so this is not going to work for you, because you have only one. So you create a VM from the template, one VM, because they have not mentioned anything. So a VM. So English sometimes is going to make a huge difference. One single VM from the template. So then forward all the traffic to VM, to this. How will you do it? You need to think of it. There's no inbuilt capability, so you have to write some HTTP forwarding rules, all those things. So which is also not going to serve the whole purpose. And there's no way you are scaling it based on the HTTP traffic. There's no connect. So the load balancer should come to picture, the health check should come into picture, MIG should be coming into picture, and that too, in MIG we should have turned on auto scaling. So those are all the stuffs which needs to come into picture, which was not even mentioned in B, I guess why few of you got confused with App Engine is just because you saw this word web application. Just because it's web application, it's not that I should always put it on App Engine. So option B is not a good choice because you have to do lots of customization, and there's no requirement which is or there's no capability which is going to fulfill this part. Scale based on HTTP traffic. So B gets ruled out. Let me use my highlighter. So A gets ruled out, B gets ruled out. Create an instance group, a managed instance group, MIG, based on the template. Good. Configure the auto scaling based on HTTP traffic. You remember there was a drop down, the metrics, it was based on HTTP. And configure the instance group, the one which you configured here, configure it as your backend of your load balancer. Looks like exactly what we did they are talking. C looks like a good choice. Before locking C, let's look into D. Create a necessary amount of instances required for the peak user traffic based on the instance template. Okay, something like for the peak, I need 20 instances. Create an unmanaged instance group and add the instance to that instance group. Configure the instance group as a load backend service of the load balancer. D is also a possible choice. D is also possible choice if you ask me. The only difference between C and D is cost wise. C is going to be better, and D is the traditional way. This is the traditional way which we used to do. We know how much load is going to come. You used to keep it well in advance in your on-prem and do it. You are trying to do the same style. So D is also a possible choice which you can do, but uh, the cost is going to be very high because you are already saying I want the peak is going to be 20 VMs. So you would have already created 20 VMs. But on a Sunday midnight or on a Saturday midnight where nobody is accessing your website, so you will still be running 20 VMs. So that's of no use. And nowhere they have mentioned it has to be cost effective. If they have not mentioned it, it's assumed that it is going to be cost effective. So with all the options looking at, the best one which I feel is option C. Most and that, let's see whether what's the, so option C is the right answer. So folks who mentioned option B, hope the explanation is clear. uh, oh sorry, I missed it, Mangesh, I did not see it. When was that? Good. So sorry, I missed. Okay, sorry, I missed to say your name. Sorry. On to the next question. Set up an auto scaling instance. There's no highlight of the text, so you have to make sure what is the keyword which is important here. So a mix of that thing so that you get used to it. So you set up an auto scaling instance group uh, to serve web traffic for an upcoming launch. After configuring the instance group as a backend service to your HTTP load balancer, you notice that the virtual machines are being terminated and relaunched every minute. The instance don't have a public IP address. Don't have a public IP address. I guess we did something. No, we did not do like that. So we had a public IP address, if I'm not wrong. Did we do a public IP address, folks, by any chance, or it was internal IP address? I guess it was internal, if I'm not wrong. So we did something similar. Uh, Never mind. So extra. So it was. So the VMs, the individual VMs, does not have external IP address. So you verify that the appropriate web response is coming from each instance using curl. So meaning, because it's not having an external IP address, I cannot open it in the browser. So what I do basically is I log into or SSH into those VMs or RDP into that VM, do a curl command. So curl localhost. If it comes, I understand that the code is deployed properly in the virtual machine is what I understand. So that's what they're saying. So the code is working at an individual VM level. You want to ensure that the backend is configured correctly. What should you do? So problem statement here is the VMs are getting relaunched every 1 minute. Every 1 minute basically. But the code is running properly in the VM. What could be the possible issue? Go for it. Your time starts now. Uh, Already I got a couple of responses, correct responses from Anil B and Vivek Kumar. Deepak Bandari got it correctly. Anil Kumar got it correctly. One wrong answer. Aman got it correctly. Last 50 seconds. Uh, yes, Anil Kumar, that's correct. Two wrong answers. Last 5 seconds, folks. Time up. Uh, let's look into the options. The first option, basically, the VMs are getting terminated and relaunched again. So basically, to do this, something should happen behind the scene. What is that which is going to make this entire thing? Discard it, create a new one. What is that feature which is going to do it, folks? This is an instance group. What is that? It is going to, which is that feature which is going to do that? There's no load. Please remember, there's no load. There's no load on the system. What is that which is going to discard and create a new one every 1 minute here? It is saying yes, Anil B. So anybody else wants to comment? Anil B got it correctly. So what is that which is going to that feature which is going to recreate your VM every time, even though there's no load? It's going to be, if there's no load, right? Auto scaling will not come into picture. The health check is going to come into picture. The auto healing capability, it does that health check continuously. It's not able to reach, it understands maybe the system is down, crash something, so it's going to create a new VM, just discard the old one. So this is what is going to happen basically, is happening currently. So it's going in a loop continuously. So for the health check to do, there's something which is important. uh, it needs to do a probe. It needs to probe the VM, check whether it is able to access it. So the firewall rule should be allowed. So the load balancer is going to check whether your system is healthy or not. So it's going to do that probe. So if you don't allow that load balancer IP to access it, then you cannot do a health check. So that is a basic thing here which is happening. So the problem is, the question is more towards auto healing, and whether for auto healing to work, the firewall rule is opened or not. That is the most important thing. So first, let's look into options. On so all source traffic, to allow source traffic on HTTPS to reach the load balancer. Uh, what does this line means, folks? They're trying to put firewall rule to what? To the load balancer. So you cannot put a firewall rule to a load balancer. We have not looked into load balancer to a great extent, but at a high level, what we have seen, we don't put a layer 7 load balancer. So there's a different product in GCP called as Armor, which you can treat it as a uh, web-based firewall rule for your load balancer. But you put firewall rules only to VMs. Please keep it in mind. We put only firewall rules to VMs, nothing else. So we cannot apply it to a load balancer. So option A does not work. The reason is, we are not saying the application is not reachable or anything. So first of all, the systems are getting it's rebooting or it's relaunched basically. So, and we cannot put a firewall rule to our load balancer. Option A gets option B, assign a public IP to each instance and configure the firewall rule to allow the load balancer to reach the instance group. Now this is not a good practice, and I have done few implementations where the organization puts a constraint. Any VM which you create, you cannot create an external IP address. So if you have such kind of a constraint, it's not going to work. So this option itself, we cannot turn it on. That's one thing. And the second thing is not the problem with the VM's external IP address here. So it's basically load balancer and the virtual machine. They're all going to be in the same Google ecosystem. A load balancer can connect to your VM using internal IP address itself or using some specific net blocks. So just because the VM is having internal IP address does not mean that it cannot connect. So option B, even if you have the option of making it public IP, it's not still going to work. The reason is it's going to get relaunched again. The moment you have an external IP address also, uh, and also I don't know this part of the line whether it's going to work very well because the VM is getting relaunched every 1 minute. So in 1 minute I have to SSH and just do curl command there. So a little tricky there, but option B again does not going to work. Ensure the firewall rule exists to allow the load balancer health check. There was a health check which we had done, and we had attached the same health check to our MIGs and to be used by the load balancer. So it's a common health check so that the load balancer can reach out to the instances in your instance group, check whether they are healthy or not. If they are not healthy, it's going to send it to a new VM. So this firewall rule should be opened there. So load balancer is one service, virtual machines is another service. So there's going to be some set of IPs, net blocks, which we'll talk more in our networking class. So 35 dot something, 130 dot something. So there are two net blocks or CIDR ranges. So if you whitelist that, you should be able to easily communicate with your internal VMs basically. So option C looks more appealing than the remaining stuffs. Option D, create a tag on each instance with the name of the load balancer. So what they are saying is the load balancer name is batch 6. So create a tag, a network tag. We have not explored to a great extent, but we have just seen HTTP. You can, when you turn on HTTP firewall rule, there's going to be a tag. So configure the firewall rule with the same name of the load balancer as the source and the instance tag as a destination. So the name has no importance in GCP. So I'm not sure about other clouds. So, but the name of uh, the load balancer name has no importance. You can give whatever you want. So option D is not going to be an option which can work basically. So usually when you put tags, so it's going to be a free text. So it has no connect to any load balancer names. So looking at the option D looks more appealing than anything else. And there's something which we had also seen easy. So where we had created a load balancer and we had configured the health check for that, and then the health check took around 5 minutes to do entire stuff, and we were able to easily. And if by chance it was failing, you can go back to your MIG demo, purposely block your port 80. That's where we were listening on, and see what's going to happen with your health check. So every time it's going to recreate it. So I would suggest, if you are planning to do some kind of a hobby project, take this question itself as a project and do it. MIG but firewall blocked. So that's going to improve your this thing. Or maybe you can pause this. Once we finish the networking class, you can combine your networking concept and your MIG concept and do it. That's going to be a good exercise for you. So option C is the better choice here. Next question on virtual machines only. So you have a application server running on compute engine in Europe West 1, Belgium D zone. you want to ensure high availability and replicate the server to West 2. So London, if I'm not wrong, from Belgium to London, you need to have a copy, replicate the server using the fewest uh, steps possible. It should be in the very few possible steps quickly. The whole purpose is you want to quickly replicate it. How will you do it? So your time starts now. Vivek got it correctly. Sorry, 45 seconds over. Anil Kumar got it correctly. Mangesh got it correctly. One wrong answer. Anil B got it correctly. Two wrong answers. Three wrong answers. Ankit got it correctly. Aman Kumar got it correctly. Last 20 seconds, folks. All right, time up. Let's look into the options. If required, we can do also a demonstration if it's not very clear. So basically from Belgium, I want a compute engine to be available, replicate the server in London, London C zone. So create a snapshot from the disk. Okay, we can create it and there's no downtime required also. Create a disk from the snapshot. Yes, you have to create it because it's going to be in a compressed form in London zone. Then create VM that disk. Simple, right? So this is in our demos also. Looks like a straightforward option, no rocket science. So looks like a possible option. Let's just mark it and see if there is anything better than this. Create a snapshot from the disk exactly like this. And now a small trick, folks. In the exam, right? Uh, you may see certain question options very similar. Now, if you are a fast reader, you can read it, but I don't read it. I'm not a fast reader. So what I do is I just use my mouse, maybe a crude way, but I use this option. It works. Now, if I see the only word which is changed is this one. And so half of the part I have just without reading, I'm just seeing the difference there. What is the option there? So create a disk in the from the snapshot in Belgium only, and then move the disk to London. Create a VM with that disk. Option B. Now let me just show you a small demonstration of this, folks. This needs to be very clear. So per my understanding, right, with this option, what's going to happen is you can take snapshot, no problem. Where you want, you keep it. Uh, now, uh, once the snapshot is there, snapshot basically they are saying move, uh, create a disk from the snapshot, and the disk move it. So disk cannot be moved. The disk is either a zonal resource or a dual zone. That's it. So it's always in a specific zone, and you cannot move it from one zone to another zone. Basically, there's no option. Uh, Let me just show you that via a demonstration. Let me just go to my screen. So I already have this VM running. Uh, there's one VM. So there's a VM running. What they are saying as a requirement, snapshot from, let's go ahead and take a snapshot. So there's no snapshot. Let me take a snapshot. Snapshot, uh, source, what they are saying, take the snapshot in specific zone. Okay. Meaning where the VM was. So in my case, the VM is in Singapore. So if you just see it, uh, to be very frank, right, I have RDP into a Linux machine, and this is the same Linux machine. So it's insane. So to the same machine we have RDP'd, and we are seeing that machine details in GCP console. So that's the highlight here. So it's in Singapore A zone. So if I just go to snapshots, I'm going to keep it in Singapore. And to be very frank, if you ask me, you cannot keep the snapshot uh, in a zone. It is a regional resource or a multi-regional resource. So some correction to the question itself is needed. But anyway, let's assume it is in Singapore. So source is this. We don't want multi-region. We want region Singapore. Let's take it. Let's wait for the snapshot to. You see, it is regional or multi-regional resource only. So, but the question itself, if you ask me, itself is little wrong. Take snapshot zone. So this is where you prove yourself learning your this thing much better. So all the options are wrong if you ask me. You cannot take snapshot in a zone. You can take only it in a region or a multi-region stuff. So option A, we found it as a possible choice, but that's not totally. So it should be taken in US, sorry, London region, not in a specific. So the snapshot we created, little heavy content. Okay, the snapshot is created, folks. What they are saying, from the snapshot, create a create from the snapshot. So created this. So if I just go to disks, create a disk. So I'll just call it as London. Now what I'm going to do is basically created in Belgium only. So I'm going to create the disk in this case in Singapore, same zone. So instead of a blank, I'm going to use snapshot, use my snapshot. Now balanced. So access is good enough for me. So that's it. We are using the snapshot and creating a disk. Now when I create disk, it's going to be the zone is going to be fixed. The zone is going to be fixed there. So I'll just show you what's going to happen. So as per the requirement, we are doing it. So once you have that in Singapore A zone, that's it. You cannot move it. There's no option to move your disk. The disk is going to be a zonal resource. So, and if the disk is not accessible, you cannot even create a VM in London. So it's not going to work. The disks are zonal in nature. Option of move the disk to London is not going to work basically. Let me just show you that. We have a disk. We have a disk. Currently it is not used by anything. Now you can use this disk to create a VM. So if I just click on this, create it, this thing is going to be fixed, folks. What is that? You see the existing disk. Now if I change it to something else, say for example Jakarta, and when I do it, it's going to go off. Basically it's not going to show you. The reason is the disks are zonal, so you'll not see any existing disk in Jakarta. So it's a zonal one, and if you don't have it, you cannot attach it. Now if I change it back, my disks, my location to Singapore A zone, and when I go to my images, I see the existing disk. And if I try to change, forget about Jakarta, but if I just even make my zone as C zone in Singapore, even then I will not be able to access my disk because it's a zonal resource. So if I go to existing disk, you see there's nothing. So the disk is a zonal resource, so and it cannot be moved. Basically, remember it. So to move it, you have to take it as a custom image or a snapshot. So hope this part is clear, folks. So I'll just go back. So option B is not going to work itself. Forget about the easiest step. It is not going to work itself. So B is an invalid answer. So option C, use gcloud command to copy the disk to London zone, create a VM with that. We cannot even do a copy. So if you just go to your disk, so if you go to your disk, right? So the options which you get is basically create an instance, create a snapshot, create an image, create a, but there's no option of copy. So you may say clone is there. Go ahead, try it. When you click on clone, uh, you can do a clone in the same zone, not in a different zone. So the zone is fixed. So you create a given name like clone one, it's going to create a disk, but it's going to be in the same zone. So there's no option of copy which exists. So on the similar lines, like option 2, which we explored, the same thing is going to apply here also. So B and C are not going to be a valid option itself. The next part, use instance move with parameter like destination zone to the instance to the new zone. Can anybody comment on this, folks? Option D, any reason to rule it out or any reason to consider it? We had done move. I remembered it. So other things, maybe I did not go so detailed. So that's the reason I showed you a small demonstration. So any reason why D should consider or D should be discarded? What's going to happen if you use it? Any thoughts, folks? Disk is limited to zone. Perfect. That's a good one. And when you run this command, what's going to happen first of all? Move command. Regions are different, so the destination zone option will not work. Absolutely correct, Ankit. The question is about HA in a different. So yes, there are two different ways of approaching it. So first of all, forget you don't know the you have not looked into gcloud command itself. You can also blame me. Maybe I did not show you. Assume like that, or you skipped it. We had seen it, but we had seen a demo there. But if you have missed it, to recollect it, just use your normal concept. Now the question, as Bandari mentioned, it is on replication. Now what is the command which is trying to do? Meaning it's going to remove our instance in Belgium and it's going to put it in London. So it is not moving. you have to have a copy, a redundant copy there. So this command is going to be not valid if you just think with the command move. That's one way of handling it if you don't remember the gcloud command, as Bandari mentioned. So if you know the gcloud command, as Anil, Ankit, and yeah, Anil Kumar and Ankit mentioned, the command is not going to work, folks. The reason is the gcloud command, move command, is only to move instances within the region. But this is from Belgium to London. So even if you don't know it is Belgium or London, you can see it. It is West 1 and West 2. So by that way, you come to know it's between two regions. So this command is an invalid command. It's not going to work. So if you know the gcloud command, you can easily say. But if you don't remember it, you can still use what Bandari mentioned. Sorry, Deepak Bandari mentioned, to mention that okay, this command is an invalid one. It's not going to work. Even if you try, it's not going to work. So D gets ruled out, C gets ruled out, B gets ruled out. So the only option which is left is C. So, and it's very it's going to be good if option A is the right answer in the beginning. So the amount of time which we spent is going to be very less. So option, hope you got the reason why option A is correct, folks. So the very easiest way to do it. Any questions? Basically, it's more conceptual here. What is zonal? What is not zonal? And we are going to create a cheat sheet towards the end. So don't worry about it. Any questions on this? Is this clear? Uh, Let me just, okay, it's clear. Then, yeah. Now let's go to the next question, folks. You need to create a Kubernetes cluster on GCP that can auto scale the number of worker nodes. What should you do? You may get such questions, very basic questions. I'm not going to give you 2 minutes for this. A minute is enough for this kind of questions. Auto scale the number of worker nodes. Anil Kumar got it correctly. Anil B got it correctly. One wrong answer. Folks, 1 minute over. Maybe I'll give you 1 more minute. It was a very simple question. That's why I thought I will give one. So, but only got two response. So have 1 more minute and answer it, please. Go ahead. Go ahead. This is not the final exam, so you can have n number of tries. Two wrong answers so far. Two wrong answers. I thought this was the simplest question. Last 20 seconds, folks. 2 minutes afterwards, we have to stop it. Three wrong answers. Deepak got it correctly. Time up, folks. Now, if you ask me, this was a copy paste of this thing which was in one of the practice exams. If you ask me, the question is not, or the answer is not well free, like mentioned properly. So maybe that could be one of the reasons why you have slightly got a question doubt. Now, whenever you get Kubernetes questions, right? Maybe we can put it as a small this thing in our cheat sheet, and I've updated my the cheat sheet, folks, the examination cheat sheet. So yesterday's article, which was not put, I have added it. So uh, one thing which you need to keep in mind is, at least from the exam perspective, when your question is more towards Kubernetes, if the question is more towards Kubernetes, question is on GKE, we know behind the GKE uses managed instance group, all those things, but that is totally abstracted from us. I don't need to touch my instance group at any cost. I don't need to do that. That is how that has been implemented. So those things are abstracted from us. Our focus should be always in the cluster, not go look into the backend system, what is being used to deploy those things or on which it is running. So never ever try to touch or modify your instance group for your GK related questions. So that's a small thing. So avoid any options which talks about uh, MIG, because VMs are abstracted from GKE. Focus on options which is on GKE cluster. Okay, so that is an important thing. So because you cannot do any changes to your MIG basically. So if that's the case, I would rule out C easily, because they are talking about configure the compute engine. So I don't need to even look into that. Similarly, option create a compute instance for the worker as a master and install Kubernetes. Totally ruled out, because master is going to be fully managed by GCP. And that too, they are saying you want to configure it on GCP. D and C is ruled out directly because of the small hint which I give you. You're left with only A and B. So create a cluster and enable auto scaling on the instance group of the cluster. So it's not instance group. Basically, you do it at your node pool. Yes, node pools are going to be at the end instance groups, but for your Kubernetes, how they are visible? They are visible as a node pool. So if there was a node pool, I would have definitely gone with option B, but it's not instance group. I cannot see it instance group in my uh, Kubernetes screen or using my gcloud command. Create a Kubernetes engine and enable auto scaling on Kubernetes engine. So even though they have not gone into the details of it, they're just given a high level option. Option A looks better for me because just enable auto scaling. So what is this auto scaling which they are talking? Let me just show you, because most of you made little mistake here. That's okay, make mistakes here. You just go to Kubernetes engine cluster creation page. So if I create a cluster, standard mode, so I go to node pools. In the node pool, I enable auto scaling. There is no instance group. Even though one node pool is one instance group, I don't directly do it at that level, but I do it in my those are abstracted. I do it in my Kubernetes cluster. So node pool, that's the reason I mentioned the question is not well phrased, or the answer is not well phrased there. So enabling on the Kubernetes engine, like at a high level, simply enable auto scaling. So the question is just to focus whether auto scaling can be turned on or not in Kubernetes. So it is because of this word I have discarded option B, folks. Many of you mentioned B, but this word is important. Instance group is not accessible, even though it is called as node pools. Okay, here why many of your B options I ruled it out, mentioned it as wrong. So option A, at a high level, if you ask me, it's going to be a good one. Just enable auto scaling. If somebody drills down and asks where you have to turn it, it's going to be at a individual node pool. So meaning one node pool, you add a new node pool, something like pool batch 6. For each node pool, you can turn on auto scaling. All right. Hope it's clear, folks. Option A is a good choice. The next question, slightly moving to App Engine. So we finished few things on Kubernetes. Kubernetes Engine, we had already seen two questions when we were doing during the class itself. The reason is there was gcloud command and kubectl commands. I wanted to get it very clear. So we had seen gcloud cluster resize and gcloud cluster update uh, related commands. So already some questions we had already discussed. Uh, um, Okay, without me and asking for the response, Anil B already responded. It is also correct. Let me read out the question first. You create an update, created an update for your application app engine. You want to deploy the update without impacting the users. You want to be able to roll back as quickly as possible if it fails. If the deployment fails, you should be able to roll back also. What should you do? So Mangesh and Anil Kumar has got it correctly so far. Anil B also got it already correctly. Vivek, Ankit, Shripal, Kumar. Okay. App Engine is what looks like your favorite product. So far, most of you got it correctly and no wrong answers. And we just did only for one day, one session only App Engine. Okay. I guess most of you got it. Let's just give 30 seconds for others. Anybody want? Kumar got it correctly. Shripal, Ankit, everybody got it correctly. So Aman got it correctly now. So good. So as most of you mentioned, I'm going to say the answer later, but let's look into the options, folks. So delete the current version of your production of your application. Deploy the update using the same version identifier as the deleted version. So if you do this option, what's going to happen? So what's going to happen? Anyway, you got the answer, but what's going to happen if you go with option A? What is the problem you are going to face? What's the problem you're going to face? Rollback won't be possible, as Anil B mentions. Yeah, you'll not be able to roll back. So notify the user for an upcoming maintenance window. Deploy the update in the maintenance window. What is the problem with option B, folks? What is the problem with option B? Should work, right? I'll put a without informing. So old way. Yes, I really like Deepak Bandari's answer. Old way of doing it. Folks, we are in cloud. We cannot still do the same style where uh, uh, I can just mention it. This is how banks even now does it. On Sunday 3 a.m. to 4 p.m. you cannot use net banking. Nobody is going to use at that time unless there's an emergency. But they mentioned that that's how still banks do it. So that's a very traditional way of doing it. So you don't want to inform anybody. So you are in cloud. You can do something very cool features which we have seen. So it's a very traditional way, is what I say. But it is a possible option. So during that quiet period, I do check, deploy the version 2, do a smoke check. If everything is fine, then I do it. So I personally in 2005 when I started my career, I had put a banner in the website. The website is down for maintenance. So where we were doing all the back end work, and then we used to remove that. So these are gone, so you don't need to do that. So option B is a traditional way, but it's going to work. But traditional way. Deploy the update as the same version that is currently running. So if you just do that, again, rollback is not going to work. Deploy the update as a new version. Migrate the traffic from the current version to the new version. So meaning when you deploy, right, you are going to use that hyphen no amount. So first you are going to check everything is good, then only you are going to do the migration. So migrate the traffic to version 2. So as most of you mentioned, D is the right answer. The next question. And this may look very basic question, and this is how you are going to get it, the field. So you'll have a very complex question. The following question may be very simple. It's only just 30 seconds, you answer it and go ahead. So already people are answering it. Your company wants to have several microservices to help their system handle elastic load. Each microservice uses different versions of software libraries, one using Python 2, one using Python 3.6, one using Python 3.9. You want to enable their developers to keep their development environment in sync with the production service. The standard dialogue, it works in my system, not in your production system, that should be avoided. Which technology should you use? So far everybody gave it correctly. Kumar, Mangesh, Vivek, Aman, Deepak, Anil Kumar, Shripal, Anil B, everybody get it. So it's basically containerization. So the whole reason for putting this is just to give you that this thing. So maybe there's a very difficult question where you spend 5 minutes. The 2 minute rule is not going to work at that time. So you may spend 5 minutes, but you have lost already 3 minutes. How do you pick it up with such questions like this, where you are just going to get only few minutes, few seconds to just answer and do it? You don't need to even think. So that way you're going to cover up those things. So option B is a good choice. Is a good choice. Uh, this is a question which I have only created, folks. You want to run your favorite game, and if you're not a game lover, ignore this question, please. So if you want to run your favorite Windows PC based game like Call of Duty, it may have played these things on Google Cloud platform, and these games need GPUs. Which compute option can you fulfill? Which compute option can fulfill this requirement? uh, Basically. So far, Vivek, Anil Kumar, Anil B, Mangesh, Ankit, uh, Aman gave it correctly. Uh, Deepak got it correctly. No wrong answers, basically. Kumar got it correctly. Okay, let's go with the options. First option, let me know. Okay, so let me know options A, folks. First of all, why did you load option A? Let me know that. What was your thought process behind this? So, what was your thought process behind this? Awesome. HTTP. It is only a web-based application. Uh, and if I'm going with App Engine, I cannot run it with GPUs and all. We saw that we cannot get those GPUs. And what you are going to use, these are executables. I guess at least once in a lifetime you would have played a game. So you will have a setup.exe file, you would have set it up, then ran it. So it's going to be not a web-based application. It's a console is what going to usually happen, these games. So A gets ruled out because A focuses only on web, not on the console. Cloud Run, again, it is container based unless Call of Duty or Hitman games containerize it. I don't think so. Any games which is still containerized, so it's not going to. So because for that to run, you have to containerize it. And Cloud Run, if you were to have and it's only web focus, again it's going to get ruled out. So it's going to have two complications. You have to have containerized, and you should have to have, it's going to be web focused, so it's not going to fulfill. Compute engine, our fallback option. So definitely we can create Windows uh, server. There is also a possibility of creating the desktop version also. When time arises, we can talk about that. There's a possibility there. Uh, and Windows Compute Engine, then, sorry, you provision a Windows machine, GPUs are possible. You just install your executable and start doing it. Option C looks like a good choice. Now, option D, if you ask, is also going to be a good choice. Uh, the reason is, of late, Google started providing support for Windows based stuffs. So, for example, if you challenge saying Kubernetes does not support GPUs, I can show you it supports. If you say Kubernetes does not support Windows, I can show you it support Windows. So, go to my Kubernetes. Let me just delete this node pool. So when I go to my node pool, auto scaling, enable it. So the nodes, right, on which the container runs. The possible options of the nodes are container optimized OS, Ubuntu, so and so. You have Windows also, folks. Windows long-term service is also available, meaning I can have a Windows machine running as my node pool, meaning I can deploy Windows based apps, all those things easily. That is going to work. Then if the question is towards GPUs are supported. Now the only reason why D is not a good choice, the reason is these games are not containerized. Uh, or at least in the question it is not mentioned these are containerized app. So if it's not containerized, I cannot run it in Kubernetes. So remember the this thing clause which we had seen. If you cannot containerize it, you cannot run it in your Kubernetes. So option C is a good choice there. So C and D comes very close. Just because it is not containerized, I'm not able to run it on Kubernetes. So C is a good choice. Next question. You want to make a copy of a production Linux VM in US Central region. You want to manage and replace a copy easily if there are changes on virtual machine. So the whole reason why you are having a copy, if some issue is there, you want to replace it. So you deploy a copy as a new instance in a different project in US East region. So currently it is in US. Uh, you will deploy the new image. Is it okay? The copy in US East region. What are the steps you should take basically? So this is going to be a little tricky. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, folks. And if you want, you can use some of your search options, Google search, and find out certain stuffs also, but not the question. But look for the some terms if you're not clear. Something like DD command. Anil B got it correctly so far. One wrong answer. Two wrong answers. Anil Kumar got it correctly. Vivek Mangesh got it correctly. One wrong answer. Aman got it. Two minutes over, one more minute because it's a slightly a complex question. And this question is a hint to you should little explore some of your Linux concepts, basically. Not to get confused, at least. 50 seconds more, then I'll give an explanation. Again, this was from one of the practice exams only, folks. 30 seconds more, then we'll go with an explanation. Kumar got it correctly. All right, folks, time up. Let's look into the options. The first option, use Linux dd command, disk copy kind of equivalent, daemon copy or something they call. I would strongly suggest you to explore this part. This is the command dd and netcat uh, command to copy and stream the root disk content to a new virtual machine instance in US East region. To be very frank, I have never explored dd command. I have never explored netcat command. So basically these are going to help you to copy the disk, basically is what it indicates. So but the most important thing here is stream. The word stream is going to be the important thing. Stream the root disk content to a new virtual machine. Streaming is always going to be expensive, and your network egress cost is going to increase because you're streaming that. It's going to be more expensive there. So only because of that option. So even I have not explored about dd command and netcat, but looking at that word stream is going to catch my eyes, saying that at least this looks like little expensive option. There could have been easy options which we can leverage. So option A, I'll just park it for now. Thank you, Mangesh. So I can use that stuff and put it. If you can put it in the everyone, Mangesh, that's going to be helpful. So it's used for breaking the files using the record length, is what Mangesh mentions. So that's where the command is going to be used. Uh, to be very frank, never explored it. uh, and the word stream is the one which helped me to something like this. You'll get it in the exam where you have never explored certain stuff, but look for something which can help you to look for an alternative option, or that could be the option. So create a snapshot of the root disk, okay, and select the snapshot as a root disk when you create a new virtual machine in US East region. Why option B you should consider or you should not consider, folks? What could be the reason? Any reasons on this? At least we have worked on a good amount of snapshot use cases. What happens with option B, folks? B, I need an explanation. I'm not going to give an explanation. I want you to give the explanation. Uh, awesome. Anil B and Vivek got it correctly. Uh, Thanks, Mangesh, for putting so much useful information there. So, as Anil B and Vivek mentioned, and Aman mentioned, uh, uh, Aman slightly modified one. Basically, it is the word different project is going to be an important one. Kumar also mentioned it. So, basically, you can take snapshot, but if you were to use a snapshot and create it in US East in the same project, it's going to work. We know the scope of the snapshot is within the project only, so you cannot go outside the project. So B is going to be ruled out just because the scope is limited for a snapshot. We did it in our demo itself, we were not able to do it. So the option for that was custom image. That was the option there. So let's see anytime. So A and B ruled out. A because it's going to be expensive. That's one thing. B option itself is not possible. Option C, create an E from the root disk with DD command. With DD command, create a new virtual machine in the US East region. Now this is where little exposure on that command comes into picture. I had done some search and understood that this is not going to work on mounted disk. The command Mangesh can help us here. He had some exposure, is what I understand. So you cannot use it on a mounted disk. Basically, is what I was able to figure it out. Option C. Basically, this is not going to work correctly as expected if you are doing it on a mounted disk. So that's where option C is not a good choice. Option D, create a snapshot from the root disk. Okay. Create an image file in the Google Cloud. Create an image file in the Google Cloud storage from the snapshot. Okay. Then in US East region using the uh, image file from the boot disk. So from the root disk. So what is they are doing is basically taking a longer route. taking a longer route, project 1, snapshot, then use that snapshot and create a image, uh, image from the snapshot or using the snapshot, and export it to GCS bucket. Now bucket, Google Cloud Storage bucket, right? So if you just give access to that bucket, any project, they should be able to access this bucket from project 2 easily. If you ask me, very longer process, but this is going to work. This is going to work, but this is a longer process. Any better process if you can recommend, folks? Any process which you can recommend? D is the right answer. It's going to meet all the requirements, and it's going to be possible to have across 2 different projects, because the image is kept in Google Cloud Storage, which I can access from different products easily. So if you were to give a better choice, what would be your choice, folks? Yes. So just use your create an image and give the access to that image with what Vivek mentioned, compute image user rule. That's going to be a better way, simple, because putting it into Google Cloud Storage, giving access, all those things, it's going to be a time consuming one, I have seen. So create an image in the Google Cloud Storage from the snapshot. So it's going to be a little tricky there. So the options there, D looks like a good choice. The end, that's the end of our so that's the last question which I have. So what we will do now is we'll take a 10 minutes break. Once we come back, I'm just close this off.
Mahesh, just want to give
So
a
once we come back, yeah,
update on DD command. So
go ahead.
DD command is like, I mean, in our project, right, we have mainframe system and the ETL system. Okay. So mainframe sends the files to us and then we process it. So mainframe sends file in episodic mode, but episodic mode is not readable in our side. So what we do using DD command, we break the file and remove the header and trailer and get the actual data file and then process it. So that's the purpose we use DD command, just to break the file
Okay,
on the
awesome.
basis.
Awesome. Good to know that. So what we'll do is we'll take a break. Thanks, Mangesh. So let me stop the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so our next module is going to be on storage. So we understood the various compute options. So usually those compute options are usually to be serving something, and once they have done some processing, you need to dump it into some kind of a storage option, right? For long-term retentions, all those things. For that purpose is what we are going to see this next module, where storage, with the various options of storage and database we are going to look into. So before we go into this database and storage options, folks, what are the types of data which you have seen in your day-to-day work, the types of data, or how do you differentiate data? So you're listening to my voice, that's one data. You're seeing some slide, that is the data. uh, the one which you store in your database, that's going to be one kind of data. So structured, unstructured, semi-structured, that's how usually data is going to be categorized. Images, textuals, the audio which you're listening. So these are all going to be one kind of data, unstructured information. The one which you can keep it in rows and columns easily, like your Excel sheet, that's going to be structured. Something which is going to be in a, yesterday we saw a JSON format, that's going to be semi-structured or to some extent structured. The logs which you see in your log files, Apache logs or any logs, that's going to be again semi-structured. So basically you can divide data into structured, semi-structured and unstructured data. And there are few statistics if you just search from Gartner, Forrester Wave, all those things. The stats which says is basically structured, semi-structured, unstructured. The stats says 80 to 90% is this one. Nobody interacts. You and me never talk in rows and columns. It's only those databases. So the structured part of the world is only around 10 to 20%. It's not me saying, it's some analytics like IDC, Gartner, Forrester Wave. If you look into it, they usually talk this. So more, everybody are now these days conveying their message via videos, images, audio, that kind of a stuff, or at the worst case, a presentation like this. So that's what that says. So this part is going to be important. That's what I wanted to highlight here. With that as a background, let's go to the introduction part of storage and database services. So we know the data can be categorized into three categories: structured data. So you want to use it in a database. You're going to do some transactions. So I'm going to send money. It's going to be updated in my account. That is going to be stored in a database like MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, IBM D2, something of that sort. So, but the data is very well structured. It knows what is the data type. So money is going to be a numeric or a decimal or a float. My customer ID in my bank is going to be always an integer or a bigger integer kind of a stuff. My name is going to be always string. So it's very structured in the data type and how it's going to be stored also. So it's basically like your Excel sheet. If you have not worked on database, at least your spreadsheet in my Google spreadsheet or Microsoft Excel sheet, very nicely formatted, right? Rows and columns. So that's where structured data can be fit easily. The product which Google offers for structured data, these are the two things. This is structured data. It's your structured data. Maybe let me erase it and write it. I'll just write it as it's, folks, structured data, where you get a managed version of MySQL, Postgres, and Microsoft SQL Server. Standard one. So if you are in on-prem using MySQL and you want to move to GCP, you can use Cloud SQL option, straightforward one. We need to look into the details further, but looks like a potential candidate. Now, Google also offers a native solution called as Spanner. Very own unique features, which we'll talk. Something like it is, if you were to compare it, assume like you have two cars. One is a high-end car, the other one is a normal car. So if you were to buy a glossary, most of us will order it, but assume you were to buy a glossary, you will use your normal car. So you'll not use your posh car to just go to a glossary shop. But if you were to go on a long ride, you will definitely prefer to use your posh car, right? So a high-end car. It is a something similar is what I would say. A budget car is your Cloud SQL instance. A posh car is your Spanner instance. So it gives you lots of capabilities, benefits, but at the same rate, this thing, it's going to be a little expensive. A budget car is going to be getting, you may get it in 5 lakhs. A posh car maybe in 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs or more than that. So that's the difference there. Basically, for handling any kind of structured data, you get two product offerings. One, which is basically a third open source and a third party products. Microsoft SQL Server is going to be third party. MySQL and Postgres is going to be open source offering. So today you don't like GCP, like you are using MySQL and that too on Cloud SQL. Tomorrow you don't like GCP for some reason. If you are running it on MySQL, AWS also has the same option, managed version of MySQL called as RDS. Just deploy it. Similarly in Azure, you get it. Deploy it. You can move between cloud if you use Cloud SQL option. But if you use Spanner, tomorrow you don't like GCP or there's a business decision you want to move out of GCP, Spanner is a native product. So you cannot easily move it. So you have to do some migration there. So two product offerings for structured data. Now, the next part which you are going to usually use is semi-structured. So semi-structured information, usually logs, JSON files, document, DB kind of stuff. So if you were to handle such kind of stuff, you get again two product offerings from Google. One is Cloud Bigtable, the other one is called as Cloud Data Store. Now it is having a latest version of it called as Firestore. Both going to come into picture. So this is basically another way of classifying it is structured data is going to be most of the time relational data, relational database. Semi-structured data is going to be a good fit to put it into a NoSQL database. So where you are not putting any strict schema and all, so you can add new columns, delete columns easily. So that's going to be a good fit when it comes to uh, NoSQL database, which is a good fit for putting semi-structured information, the log content, JSON, XML kind of stuff. So Google offers you two products, one with very low latency requirements. So it can be as low as 6 milliseconds. So, and it can support petabytes of information easily. Anything on, say, for example, recommendation engines, all those things, recommendation, any um, time series data, IoT data, people prefer to use Bigtable. The name itself indicates it's Bigtable. So it can take petabytes of information easily. And not everybody will have petabytes of volume of data requirement, right? They may have a smaller requirement, maybe like a TB or less than a TB. So if you were to use such kind of if you have such kind of requirement, you have a miniature version of Bigtable called as Cloud Data Store. If you look into the documentation, you will come to know the implementation of Data Store and Firestore, which is the next generation version, is actually the code was from the same Bigtable. So it's a miniature version of it. So it's going to be little easier to use, and it is serverless. A NoSQL database which is serverless in GCP is Firestore or Data Store. So that's for your semi-structured information. If you have an unstructured information like the slide, the PPT which you're seeing, or the cloud Google Slides which you're seeing on the screen, the audio which you're listening, uh, uh, the YouTube videos which you see, these are all unstructured information. So binary objects. I cannot store it in a database. If you are DBA, if you have worked on database, you will definitely say, I can store a binary object. Definitely you can store it in a database, but it's of no use. You cannot do any kind of analytics, or you cannot do anything. You just store it as a dump storage there. So instead of that, why do you want to store it in a database? Because database is going to be always little expensive product. Store it in a blob storage, binary large object storage, where it is a good fit to keep any kind of data. And if you ask me, these products, right, Cloud SQL, Spanner, Bigtable, Cloud Data Store, when you store the data in these storage options, you can query it. You can run some queries. Some would be SQL queries, some would be slightly different, no SQL queries, but you can query it. But if your requirement is, I don't know what to do with this data, I don't want to query it, but let me just keep it for some time. Later, let me decide it. So a small example is like the utility in our house. Whatever we don't need it, we are going to dump it there. Whenever we want, we are going to take it, right? It's going to be something of that sort. So a dump storage, but can store anything you want. It could be a car itself. If you don't want to dump, if you have a utility or a garage which is that big, you can dump a old car there. So you can dump anything you want in Google Cloud Storage. Basically, it's a binary large object storage. We'll talk about the difference between a blob storage and a block storage soon. It's a blob storage. In very, very simple terms, more like your Google Drive, more like your Amazon AWS S3 bucket or your Dropbox kind of stuffs is what you're going to see it in Google Cloud Storage. So anything you want, you can dump it here. Even structured data, a CSV file, an Excel sheet, a video file, an image, a textual file, everything you can dump it, but you cannot query it. You can just view the content, upload it, download it, delete it. That's what you can do. No querying. It's a dumb storage. Maybe in our module 6, we will see how we can convert this dumb storage, Google Cloud Storage, into an intelligent querying system with the help of BigQuery. At that time, we'll make it intelligent. But in this class, it's going to be just a dumb storage. Okay. So those are the different types of data and different types of products which we are going to discuss in this module. As I mentioned, as per the statistics, 90% or 80 to 90% is unstructured. 80 to this thing is unstructured, and the product which we use to store any unstructured information is Google Cloud Storage. We'll start with this first. This is going to be started. We'll explore it. Slowly move to Cloud SQL. This is going to be second, third, fourth, and fifth. This is how we are going to look into it. All right. So let's jump into our first submodule, Cloud Storage, Google Cloud Storage. So GCS in short, object storage and serving. The equivalent of this in AWS is your S3 bucket, simple storage service. Not a good name to remember. Same is the case with Google Cloud, cloud storage. But Microsoft namings are really good. Blob storage, binary large object storage. And if you see, all these are binary large object storage. So what do you mean by blob storage? BLOB, blob storage means basically, in very, very simple terms, let me just put this. There are two types of storage which you get. Here, you don't need an OS to no OS required. Needed to access the data. Something like your Dropbox. Something like your Dropbox. So you can access your Dropbox from your phone, from your laptop, anywhere, even outside. The blob storage is more like your persistent disk, which we have seen, the various persistent disk, standard SSD, local SSD, balanced persistent disk, all those things. It is equivalent to your external hard disk, which you may have in with your laptop, external hard disk. So that content, right, you cannot read it without an OS. You need always an OS, need a OS to read this content, because it's going to be stored in blocks. So you need an operating system to read that content. But blob, you don't need any OS to read that content. So you can access it via APIs. So this is used for large data. So that's the reason, binary large object data. So a video of a 4K resolution video, which is like 3 GB, you can easily store it in blob storage like Dropbox in GCP, Google Cloud Storage. So that's the difference between a blob and a block. Could be a simple interview question there, differentiate between your blob storage and block storage. So this will help you out. So I can access a blob storage without any OS. I have it in my Google Cloud Storage, I can directly access it. But if there's a disk write, we have used the disk write. If you were to read the content of the disk, it has to be attached to a virtual machine. And a persistent disk is a block, BLOCK storage. Hope it's clear, folks, the difference between a blob storage and a block storage. What we are discussing is a blob storage. We have already discussed block storage. The persistent disk is already discussed in our virtual machine class. So before we go to the Google Cloud Storage, so when you think of storage, what and all comes to your mind? So for example, assume you wanted to order a disk, and an external disk or an external hard disk, what are the things which comes to your mind, folks, when you are trying to buy? Ignore brand. uh, you will look for some brand specifically. In that brand also, what is that which you're going to look for? When you're looking at a storage, you want to have a disk storage, sorry, external hard disk. Size, cost, what else? Anything else? What's the size? Whether I want 1 TB or 5 TB. Accessibility. Then what else? Speed also. How quickly I can access it. What is the RPM speed? All those things. So that's going to be one thing. The size is an important thing. So you start with that size, right? I want 2 TB external hard disk. I want 10 TB external hard disk. So that is your main deciding factor. Based on that only you do the remaining stuffs. Hope my understanding is correct. So uh, later only everything starts following. Okay, what's based on the size only, your cost is going to be decided. Based on the size only, uh, uh, the brand, in what brand, whether that is available, it's going to come. The size is very, very important when it comes to storage. Even when we did our persistent disk, right? The first mandatory thing is, please tell me what is the size. Only then it can provision. You cannot have an unlimited size. But the uniqueness with Google Cloud Storage is, I'm not comparing it with other products in other cloud, but within GCP itself, persistent disk versus Google Cloud Storage, if you compare it, persistent disk, when you start itself, you should mention the size. But when it comes to Google Cloud Storage, you don't need to mention anything. So it's a no capacity planning service. So basically, it's a immutable binary large object storage. So where you don't need to uh, plan for any capacity, but it is the objects which you upload. And we usually don't call, when you upload a data into a storage bucket, we don't call it as a file. We call it as an object. That's going to be a better way of using it. And when you are also talking to a customer, don't say that upload a file to a Google Cloud Storage. Upload an object. That's going to be the better way to use it. And it is immutable. What is immutable? When you upload an object, you cannot change the content of it. If you were to change the content, you have to replace it, upload a new object with the same name. Say for example, if I upload a object like batch6.txt, and it has all the modules which we have covered. Tomorrow we are going to cover a new module. So if I were to add that extra line, I cannot do it. I have to create a new file with the same content, upload the updated content, and replace it in my storage bucket. So that is why you call it as an immutable object. You cannot change the object state. If you were to change it, replace it. And you don't need to do any capacity planning. So if you don't know, no problem. So as you upload, based on the volume of data which you have in your storage bucket, you'll be charged uh, based on the data. So, and you can have unlimited amount of data. To be very frank, it is really unlimited amount of data. So you can keep on adding based on your existing, you are going to be charged. But there's one limit which you need to keep in mind. One object, in very, very simple terms, one file when you're uploading, right? The file size cannot be more than 5 terabyte, or the object cannot be it has to be always less than or equal to 5 TB. One file, folks, or one object. I have never seen something of that sort. The maximum which I have seen is something like 4 gig or something, one file. So uh, if you have an object which is more than 5 terabyte, one single object, you have to split it. Same is the case with the popular clouds like AWS and Azure. So they have also the same limit. If you have explored Oracle Infrastructure Cloud, they have, because they started late in this game, so they should have some like better options. So they have one single object can be maximum up to 10 terabytes. Now this may not be so important for us, but in future definitely we will hit one single object, a backup. one backup itself is 5 terabyte. It can occur. At that time, you should make sure you split it and do it. By the time every business is going to have one object as 5 terabytes, then definitely these cloud providers will increase their limit from one object size to be 5 terabyte to 10 terabyte. They will definitely do it. But since currently not many organizations have one single file of this size, Google has put this as a limit. AWS has also put the same limit. So, but I heard if the files are from space research and all, you can have this kind of size. So in that case, you have to split it. Maybe like if it's at one file, it's 6 terabytes, you divide it into three, or make it as 4 and 2, something of that sort. So that's the only limitation which I see when it comes to the storage part, uh, which I would say we as individuals will never going to hit it. One object which is 5 terabyte. So, and whenever you talk about storage, right, the most important thing is the encryption part, how the data is encrypted, and that too it's not in our on-premise, it's going to be in somewhere else. So how the data is going to be encrypted. So the beauty of Google Cloud Storage is it's going to be encrypted by default. You don't need to do anything. Google has 3 types of encryption. So the default encryption is going to be used, called as Google Managed Encryption. So we'll look into that as we progress. So it is by default turned on. So at rest and at transit. And one important thing with the storage option, right? Usually the different storage options, if you see, some data may be very hot data. For example, I have a video which I want to launch in my website. I don't want to use YouTube for some reasons. I want to host it in my own website itself. And my website is having a global presence. I'm a global uh, what is that? My presence is global. So I have a promotion or a new product launch. I have created a ultra HD video. It is only 2 minutes, but the volume is around 2 GB or 3 GB ultra HD. Now I want this video to go viral. So and people should be able to access with the lowest latency. If somebody wants to do something of that sort, you can use Google Cloud Storage, and this data is usually called as global hot data which needs to go viral, public access, low latency across the globe, across the world. So if you have such kind of a requirement, usually this data is going to be called as hot data, and it's public. I want to make it viral. The second type of data which you may have is usually uh, uh, data for processing, processed data, or data for processing. Oh, how do I put it? Or analytics. So you're not interested in making this data served with the lowest latency, all those things. That's not your concern. You have some data, you want to do some analysis on it and do some processing and get some insights out of it. And this data could be belonging to a specific organization based in a specific region. For example, you wanted to get an opinion of a specific uh, service in your bank, and your bank is based in India. So this is going to be a data processing on the new feature uh, on the bank which you have done. So you're going to do some processing. So this is going to be not hot data, but it is going to be used for processing. So you may use this data for multiple purpose, like read and write multiple times. So this is your second type of data. Now, two types of data over. The next type of data which you may use is the data cannot be hot forever. No cricket player can be popular forever. So some are there. So something like no movie can be popular forever, something like that. So the data will slowly, or even the video which went viral will be viral forever. So you had a promotion for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, fine. Now after that promotion, right, you don't want to keep this serving this high resolution video, all those things as hot data, so it will become cold. It will become a cold data, so you are going to use it for some archival purpose. So you archive it. Last stage it may go is something like in on-prem tape backups. They put it on tapes. That's the cheapest option which you get. So it may go. So this is something like your coldest data. Only if some issue comes or some audit comes or some compliance issues, then I'll go to my tape backup and get it. So data can be hot, can be used for processing purpose, then slowly becomes cold, and the last thing is coldest data. So this is usually the life cycle of any data. Now if you were to use all these different types of data, hot data, data for processing, cold data, coldest data, every cloud provider will provide basically different products to handle different types of this thing. But when it comes to GCP, right, it's very unique. It provides you one single product called as Google Cloud Storage. So what's the advantage? One single API to access all different types of storage class, hot data, cold data, data for processing, all those things. But when you compare it with other cloud, for example, AWS, for AWS, if it's hot data, they use S3. If it's cold data, they use a product called as Glacier. So two different products in AWS itself means what? You as an individual should excel in learning both the stuffs, and you should use two different APIs. So two different APIs you have to excel in that. So meaning uh, learning curve is more, and you have to excel in two different APIs. But when it comes to GCP, one single API, storage.googleapis.com, that's it. So you use the same thing, but use a feature called a storage class, where you categorize the class. This is hot data, this is cold data, this is data for processing. So this way, it's going to be one cool feature. One single product, you excel in it, and you know how to handle it easily. So one single API. I really like this feature actually. And we will also do a small comparison. So this is actually a marketing slide actually. So this was there in Google's website for a long time. Now they have removed it. So what it indicates is you need to add multiple products in AWS to make uh, it equivalent to Google Cloud Storage. Still, Google Cloud Storage is little superior, is what this slide indicates basically. Um, we will see a small demonstration how we can access uh, data fastly, all those things. And one cool feature with Google Cloud Storage is it does not make any kind of difference if the data is cold data, if the data is hot data, or it is for data processing. Uh, the first bytes of access which I'm going to do, so access that object, read the object, right? So it could be a backup file. It could be a video file for serving something with the lowest latency. I should be able to access the object from the bucket very quickly, very quickly. Why I'm saying this is, if you keep an object in Glacier, assume your compliance data, you have put it in Glacier. All of a sudden, some senior official comes and says, "Can I see the balance sheet or something which was last year's or last year's data?" And if it is stored in Amazon Glacier, if you were to retrieve it, it's going to take good amount of time. It's going to take good amount of time. But when it comes to Google Cloud Storage, whether it is cold data, coldest data, or hot data, it's going to be usually in milliseconds. So that's a very cool feature. But at the same time, the cost wise, if you do comparison exactly between Glacier and AWS, Glacier and storage bucket, Glacier is going to be cheaper. So if you compare it with the cost wise, but if your whole intention is I should get it anytime as fast as possible, Google Cloud Storage is going to be really helpful. So that's a small nutshell of what is Google Cloud Storage. And the key part when it comes to Google Cloud Storage is a storage class, the kinds of class which you are going to use for hot data, data processing, all those things. So learning what is those storage class is very, very important. That is the next slide. And a very busy slide, and there's no space itself to fill in all the details, but I have tried to fill in. And I can 100% sure one question is going to come from this slide. It could be very simple or it could be very complex, but one question on Google Cloud Storage is going to come from this slide content itself. Uh, so what we'll do is we'll go with the, and it's a very busy slide, so let's go with the first option, basically hot data. So if it's hot data, I need to replicate the data across multiple locations, right? So that's where you're going to use a storage class called as multi-regional, a storage class called as multi-regional. So this is basically for public data. Whenever you want to serve some data across the regions, two regions or multiple regions, you prefer basically a multi-regional storage class. The durability for any kind of storage class is going to be 11 nines. So what do you mean by durability of 11 nines? Because these are all storages, right? At the end, it's going to be in some form of a disk. So usually for redundancy purpose, people will have two disks. What if both the disks fail at the same time? Still, you will be able to retrieve the data. So that is the meaning of durability of 11 nines. Let me just repeat it. So you have, if both the disk fails at the same time, still the data can be recovered. So that's the level. If you can do that kind of a stuff, so your durability is going to be 11 nines. And almost every cloud provider provides it. It's not a unique feature. It's now becoming very common. Even in your S3, if you go and search for S3 durability, it's going to be 11 nines. So, but if you are looking it for the first time, this is going to be durable. The durability is of 11 nines. And whenever I talk about durability, many people ask this question, but if I accidentally deleted data, can I go and retrieve it? No. This is the durability. What Google is talking is if something goes wrong at their side, they can get it. If you go and delete it, you cannot get it. So remember that this is from their side. They are providing you those SLAs. Okay. And when it comes to the availability, the service level agreement for your availability, it is going to be 3.5 nines. So 3.5 nines is the availability. So for folks who are looking into this availability, all those things for the first time, there's a nice website, Wikipedia, where you can go and look into the availability and see what does this availability of 3.5 nines mean. So you can search for it, you'll get some good stuff. Or I use called as uptime is very nice. You just so to understand what's your this thing. So 99.95. That's how usually they call it as 3.5 nines. So when you do that, it says what does this uptime means is every day Google Cloud Storage service can go down for 43 seconds every day. Every week, 5 minutes, it's what it can go. In the entire year, it can be down for 4 hours. So in a day, or usually monthly is SLA is what Google provides. They don't provide daily, weekly, or this thing. They provide monthly because you do monthly billing. So if Google Cloud Storage is down for more than 21 minutes, they're going to compensate you in your billing. So let's assume an hypothetical scenario. You have uploaded everything into Mumbai region, and for some reason, the bucket is not available for 1 hour. There is a breach of their SLA because as per their this thing, it is 99.95. If it's a region, uh, if it's 9, if it's to be 99.9, so let's make it as 99.9 for a minute. So 43 minutes it can be unavailable, one shot or aggregated. If it goes beyond it, Google is going to compose it. That's where this SLA comes into picture. It's basically a writing, an agreement between the provider and the customer. So if there's a breach, they are going to compose it. So you're going to get 99.95 of SLA when it comes to this thing. The key part with your multi-regional storage class is the cost. How much data you're going to keep it. It's multi-region. The data is going to be definitely stored in multiple regions. How many regions, I'll tell you in a minute. The cost is going to be a little high for a multi-region object, because it's going to be replicated across 3 regions, minimum 3 regions. So the cost per GB per month is going to be 0.026 US dollars. So, but the biggest advantage of multi-regional storage class is retrieval cost is free. What is that storage cost and retrieval cost? When you keep your object in the bucket, that's going to be your storage cost. When you retrieve it, download it, it's going to be a retrieval cost. So you can download this file or object multiple times. You will never be charged. But the storage cost is little high. 0.026, you may say, is it high? Compared to other storage class, it is high. Now, why it is called multi-regional basically is the data is replicated across 3 regions, minimum 3 regions. So how does it happen basically? Let me just show you. Here. So if I go to my region, this is a good one to explain multi-regional concept. Usually, now assume you are focusing on a website where your focus is only for Asian customers. So what you will do is you'll create a multi-regional storage class for Asia. Now, when I do this, first important thing is uh, the data is not going to be in the country of your choice. It's basically for public data, because you choose the moment you choose multi-regional, what can happen is you upload an object, the data gets replicated across minimum 3 regions. Maybe I am sitting in Mumbai, I upload it. The data when I upload it may not be in Mumbai itself. It may be replicated in Hong Kong, Jakarta, and Sydney. This is totally going to be decided by Google. In which in which region, the which data center is having enough space, it's going to replicate it there. But 3 replications are going to be there. So what's the advantage? If Jakarta goes down due to some natural calamity, the data is still going to be retrieved by me. So that's where that SLA of availability is 99.95, 3.5 nines. But multi-regional storage class is not a good fit if you are working for some working on data which should not leave the country. So assume it is a specific bank in India where the customers are all Indian customers. Now that data you cannot keep it in multi-region, because it's going to get, the data is going to leave the country. So only if it's a public data, I would suggest to keep it in multi-regional. Or if it's a backup of backup data of a VM or whatever it is, you can go for multi-region, because backup, if you keep it in Mumbai itself, if Mumbai region goes down, you will lose the data, right? So public data, prefer to use multi-region. Similarly, if you have a website and you have a global presence, many people think one bucket is good enough. One multi-regional bucket is good enough. Something like you have a website www.myapp.com, which has a presence everywhere. If you just create one multi-regional bucket in Asia, people from US will see a latency. Instead of that, what you create is basically one for US, one for EMEA, one for Asia. You create 3 multi-regional storage buckets and upload the same content. So if the people are coming from US, they are going to hit this bucket. If the people are coming from Asia, it's going to be this bucket. If it's EMEA, this bucket. So this way, they will always be served with the lowest latency. And this is a public content. The data is going to be replicated across minimum 3 regions. And how these regions are decided, the region should be at least 100 miles. And I was looking into one of the articles recently. Each region, when Google decides to create a new region, right? One example is going to be Mumbai and Delhi. The distance between Mumbai and Delhi should be more than 100 miles. That's what they usually do. So if I just do a search between distance between Mumbai to Delhi, it should be more than 100 miles, if I'm not wrong. Anybody quickly do that, folks? It should be more than 100 miles, right? If I'm not wrong. So uh, maps. So that's how they decide the this thing itself, basically. Hope the distance is there. I've never traveled from Mumbai to Delhi, but it should be, if I'm not wrong, 100 miles. Um, Let a better search in Google. Uh, Distance. It should be more. So that's how they do it. Let me just distance between. Yeah, it's 100. Sorry. Without Google, nothing is going to happen. 140. Sorry, 1,000. So how many? So more than 100, it's definitely. So this is, they use it as a criteria. The only reason is, uh, at least for US, it's going to be very helpful. So you see very close things, but all are going to be 100 miles away. So the only reason is, if one region goes completely due to a calamity, you still have other regions which is not impacted. So that's how they are going to design it. So usually 100 miles they are going to be up away. So that's how this multi-regional stuff works. So you upload it, it's going to be replicated across minimum 3 regions, not zones, folks, regions. And meaning you are going to lose the data. It's not going to be in your country. It's going to be somewhere in Asia. It could be anywhere. If I select my storage class as Asia, it can be anywhere. So always prefer to use a data which is like a public data, or something which is not having any PII information, personally identifiable information, PCI information. So anything related to compliance, if it's going to have, make sure you put it in a regional one. So at least in Europe, they have that norm GDPR. So make sure when you are doing in European Union any project implementation, look into those clause. Prefer to use an option which is regional, not multi-regional. The reason is, when it comes to regional, the data is basically for processing purpose. It's only for processing purpose. So meaning the data gets replicated within the region. So you want to keep the data in Mumbai, just create a storage class in Mumbai. It's going to be a regional storage class. The data is going to be replicated now between 3 zones. No other option, only between 3 zones. But the data is not leaving the country. That's why the compliance work is going to be good. That is one important reason why people go with regional one. Second reason is network cost. So usually this is data which you're going to keep it. So you need to read this data from a compute option, do some processing and dump it back. So the network cost is also going to be an important thing. So to keep the network costs lesser, the processing unit and the storage unit should be in the same region. That's what people usually do. So when it comes to regional ones, it is basically for processing purpose. So processing purpose, because it is within the region, your SLA drops to 3 nines, from 3.5 nines to 3 nines. Storage wise, it's not replicated across multiple regions, so the cost slightly drops, which is really good, 0.02. And your retrieval cost is still free, which is a beautiful thing, meaning you keep something in Mumbai storage, in Mumbai region, you create a bucket in Mumbai, you upload the data, which could be a specific bank's account details. You upload everything, you do the processing. Maybe there are millions of PDF files, all credit card informations, stored in a Google Cloud storage bucket, which is in Mumbai. Now you create a VM in Mumbai region, go and read the data, the PDF document, do some analysis and bring some insights out of it. Now, first day you may only read only 1,000 files. Second day you may read more files. So n number of times you can go and view the data, download the data. So your retrieval cost is going to be always free. Uh, and how long you can keep this data? You can keep any number of days. When you don't like it, you can delete it. There's no minimum duration required. And the best use case for this is always whenever you're going to go with any processing folks, video processing, audio processing, data processing, you use regional one. If it's for serving some content, serve with the lowest this thing latency, you go with multi-region. So the only difference is this is preferred for public and backup data. This is preferred only for processed data. In GCP, there is a certification called as data engineers, right? So data engineers only focus on this part because they work on data. They don't focus on anything else. So it has to be always regional one. So when I was working in one of the organizations, there were around 50 people who were certified data engineers, and they were doing a mistake. They used to create buckets, and the bucket by default is always going to be US multi-region. They just created everything like this. And when I joined the organization, when I was looking into project details, I told that as cloud architects, you have learned your things, you have cleared it, you're certified, but you're not using the concept what you have learned. So they were all using this one. So after educating them, please always use regional one. Then the cost came down drastically, the monthly cost actually. So that's another important thing. So not just learning the concept, but you implement it when you use it when you are implementing it. So that's where your regional one comes into picture. Now, after data processing, there could be definitely the data needs to be stored for a long-term purpose. Or if it's a hot data, it cannot be hot forever. So at least for a backup or something for keeping it okay in 2020, what was a promotion video which we did? For a reference purpose, you want to keep it, but you want to reduce the storage cost because you cannot pay always cost, right? So what you do is you switch to some long-term storage classes where you get, if you were to access the object once in a month, you're going to access it. What you're going to use? Nearline. If it's once in a quarter, you're going to do, so this is 30 days, nice, an year. If it's an year, so you have different things. So cold, colder, coldest, something of that sort. Nearline storage class is the one which you use if you are going to read the data once in a month. For example, backup file. So for example, you have a backup file, you take backups, uh, but you want to do a drill, monthly drill, whether the backup is good or not. So you're going to read that backup file once in a month. So once in a month, if you're going to access it, you are okay to pay this cost. Now you see there is a cost to your, sorry, my bad, 1 minute. Once in a month, if you're storing it for a month, the storage cost reduces drastically, almost half of it, 0.01. But what going to happen is every time you retrieve it, there's going to be a retrieval cost. This can become little expensive. So you should decide how frequently the object is going to be accessed. So as a cloud architect, you should ask this requirement, how frequently the object is going to be accessed. If they say once in 3 months or once in 6 months, we are going to access it only once, then I would say cold line is going to be better. Uh, because the data is going to be stored for long term, my retrieval cost is going to be, storage cost is going to be very small. My retrieval cost is going to be little high as I go towards the right hand side. So if you see archive, the retrieval cost is very high, but your storage cost is going to be very, very less. So this accessibility, how frequently you're going to access this, is going to make a huge difference when you choose nearline, cold line, and archive. And archive was a storage class which was added in last March, during the last March time, when Google, before that it was only 4. Now we have 5 storage class. This is going to be called as the coldest one. This is going to be called as the coldest one. So basically, depending on your requirement, depending on how frequently you're going to access, you're going to decide different storage classes. Is
So
there a
Mahesh,
question?
yeah, Mahesh, for example, initial couple of weeks or couple of months, I wanted to use daily, but after, for example, 2 months or 3 months, then I will use very, very less. Then these cloud storage can be automatically move from regional to nearline or from regional to cold line, something like that. Can we
Uh,
do like that?
you can do that. You can set up something called as object lifecycle policy. So you can set up a policy after 60 days, convert all my objects to archive. You can do that. We will see that. Yeah, there's an option for that. So that's a typical use case. People use it. That's a valid
Okay.
use case, and it is possible. But it is not by default turned on. You have to turn it on. It's not by
Okay.
default. You have to turn it on. But it's an inbuilt feature there, so you can turn it on. So those are different storage classes, folks. Now, if you look throughout the stuffs, right, the storage cost is going to be high for multi-regional. Uh, the storage cost is going to be very cheap for your archive. Retrieval cost is going to be it's almost zero, not almost, it's zero for multi-regional, but it's going to be very high for your archive. So there's a trade-off. There's a trade-off. You need to remember that. And when it comes to long-term storage, right, there's a minimum duration required for long-term. For example, now Kumar mentioned an option like I started with multi-region. Now after sometimes I move it to cold line, nearline, or archive. No problem. You will not be charged itself. But assume you made a mistake. To start with, you configure it as nearline. You did not have much visibility. 15 days you uploaded the data, you have retained it. Now you feel that it cannot be nearline because I'm retrieving it multiple times. I'm incurring a cost every time. So you decide to move to regional one. Because only you stayed for 15 days in this storage class, you need to pay a penalty for 15 more days when you move from long-term storage to a processed or public this thing. So from nearline to regional or nearline to multi-regional, if you move, you have to pay a penalty. So minimum duration is going to be required here. So this is like a simple example is like your bond, fixed deposit. So if you break the bond, you're going to pay a penalty, right? So because you would have mentioned for a month, for an year, I am going to fix it. Uh, the bank would have going to invest that in some other this thing. So if you break the bond in 6 months, they are going to charge you a penalty, something similar. So if you are mentioning I'm going to keep it for 30 days, and if you are breaking it, you need to still pay for that. You are going to have a early warning delete. So cold line, you have to keep it for 90 days. If you don't do it, 80 days you keep it, last 10 days you move it to something else, you still need to pay the 10 days difference cost. So this is an important thing to remember. So there's going to be an early warning delete. But if when it is regional or multi-regional, you don't have anything. You keep it today, you delete it immediately, you will not be charged. Different storage classes, and the whole purpose is different use cases. Now, irrespective, these are different storage classes. Which is common is durability. Common. Another thing which is common is APIs. You can access every storage class via a same API, same user interface, same gsutil command. So it's going to be very seamless experience. The third thing which is going to be common is it never does that any discrimination. You are hot storage, I'm going to serve you with the lowest latency, or I can retrieve you very fast. You are the coldest one, I will take time. No, so everything is going to be in milliseconds. The retrieval, so our access time to those objects, right? You can access it very, very fastly. So this is 3 points which is very common uh, across any storage classes. This is really a cool feature. What we will explore now is we will explore how do we create buckets, all the different storage classes. All 5 we will try to create it via command line. Once I'll show you using UI, remaining everything is going to be using command line. Uh, and I'll show you a small demonstration of this access time. So we are just going to upload an object and see how it is going to be accessed from quickly from multi-regional, regional, nearline, cold line, and archive storage class. All those things we are going to do once we come back from the break. So take a 10 minutes break. Once you come back, we'll jump into a demonstration of creating the various storage classes. So let me put my timer. So take a 10 minutes break and come back, folks.
This conference will now be recorded.
Now what we'll do is we'll go and explore the storage bucket creation. And this was the first demo which we did, but we did not go into the details of the entire screen. I told we are going to have a dedicated class on that. So today we are going to discuss that. Okay, so let's go. Go to our batch content. So scroll down to your storage. Under storage, you have the product which is Google Cloud Storage. Since we are going to use it very heavily for the next couple of classes, I'm going to just bookmark it. Open it. When I open it, it's going to come here so that I can save some navigation stuffs. So storage, click on storage. The screen which you are going to see, we have seen it a couple of times. So now the beauty here is we have not even started exploring Google Cloud Storage to the full. We have just finished exploring only the compute options. Before that itself, I have how many buckets? Uh, 7 buckets already built in. The reason is this shows how Google Cloud Storage is part of various products already. It acts as a staging environment for many products, for your containers, for your GCR, for your cloud functions, all those things, cloud build. It's going to be used as a staging environment, basically. Now let's just quickly look into the stuffs which we have learned to understand those things connecting. So where's my artifact? This is the one. This is the bucket which gets created for our GCR, right? Now, if you see by default, it's multi-region. The location is US, multi-region. Standard, what is the standard? I'll explain you in a minute. Then we had this one. This is for our app engine, and this in US. Oh, sorry, not in US. It is in EMEA. Then whenever we did cloud build, right? It uses this as a staging environment. Load it to here, cloud build. And when we use a cloud function, it's going to use this one behind the scene. So these are something which is going to be created automatically when you provision these resources, when you deploy anything. So I wanted to have a clean slate. I wanted to use a clean slate. If you want, you can delete all those things. There's no problem. And when you again enable certain stuff, it's going to again populate it. So we have no problem. We can delete all those things. If you feel too many buckets are there, you can delete it. No problem there. So I'm just going to delete it. I wanted a clean slate. And these things, no problem. I can recreate it. So if I push a new image, this is going to be created. If I deploy something via or build via cloud build, this folder is going to be created. So I have no problem. Or if I deploy something into my app engine, so my app engine related stuffs are going to create automatically. So I have no problem. So I'm just going to delete it. So the only reason why I'm deleting is I wanted to show you with a clean slate. So now multi-region storage class, multi-regional. I'll just show you the difference between multi-regional and multi-region, why people use that words. So click on create bucket, given the bucket. So what I'm going to do is there's a naming convention which is there. Uh, pick a globally unique and permanent. Why it has to be globally unique? We know it in our first class itself, because you can make the content in your bucket public. If the public content needs to be accessed, there should be a URL, and the URL should be unique. So that is the reason the name should be unique for a storage bucket globally, not across GCP. Globally, it should be sorry, at least via GCP, it should be unique. And if you try to do something like demo, it's going to show somebody already created a bucket with the name demo. So if I just do test, even that is going to be taken by somebody. Test 1, 2, 3, again taken. So you have to make sure you do it unique. So nobody has created a bucket like this, so I can create it. But this is not a good way of creating your bucket. There is a good amount of naming convention which Google provides. So look into it. So when you look into the naming conventions, they say the buckets can have dashes, underscore, dot. When you put dot, it is going to be a domain. So you need to have a domain verification done. So www.example.com, if I put, you to have a verification done. So that's something which you should do. And the bucket name can must start and end with a number or letter. It cannot end with an underscore. It cannot end with a hyphen. And these are not going to be asked in the exam. But when you're doing the real implementation for naming convention, they may ask you as a cloud architect, can you suggest some? So you can just look into this kind of naming convention. It's going to help you out. And you cannot have a bucket name with GOOG or any combination, regular expression kind of a stuff, or something like G00GL. So it's like something like they have blocked it. So you cannot do it. So there's a logic which they have put, and you cannot put an IP address as a bucket name. Now, and also you should never use there was a mention of uh, that is one thing. 1 minute, let me just show you. There's one there's an example. So set of examples. You can use, these are some possible valid names, but you should not use capital. It's not going to work. And you cannot have Google in between mentions. Say, for example, if I try to do something like learn Google Cloud Platform, it's going to say it contains Google. I cannot give you that. So I cannot have that option. So if I try to trick it by putting something like this, oh, I can trick it. Okay, I found something. So I can create something like this as a bucket. So, oh, this is how possible, but then what they are saying was not valid. So maybe they have changed it. Okay, such as, what is that they are saying? Containing or spelling such as, cannot contain, but I can make it. Let me just do this once, create it, just leave all default and see. Okay, the validation is not done there, but when you try to create it, it's going to throw you that error. That's okay, good. If I try to do something like this, let me try this. Okay, that gets, this is okay. This kind of a bucket is okay. But anywhere where there is a indication it is Google, they're not going to allow you. So that's one of the naming conventions. You have to follow it. And without that, it's not going to create. And one important thing which I base when it comes to naming convention is there is a line which they mentioned, sensitivity. You should never put your uh, email ID, any sensitive information as a bucket name. Where is that? I was looking for that. Let me just search for email. They removed it. They had a line where they mentioned it cannot have sensitive stuff. Sensitive. Okay, that's maybe they change it. It's okay. Or I'm not seeing it properly. Okay, bucket names. Bucket names resides in name. Okay, this is not the one thing which you should avoid is usually avoid putting something like if your Gmail ID is something like this. So making that, say for example, if I try to do it like this. So if I create something like this, so I remove at, replace all dots. Now, should not include any sensitive information. It's a tip. So project ID also is a sensitive information, folks. I have done this many times in my videos also, putting my project ID as the this thing. Why I put usually project ID as my bucket name is project ID is by default unique. So nobody can have a project ID like this in GCP anytime. It's already used by me. So I usually do this because it becomes unique and I can easily create the bucket. But the mistake is it is going to have some sensitive information. So the best way to create your bucket always is use some kind of a globally UID, so globally identifiable, uniquely identifiable identifier. If you use it, it's going to be better. It should be unique, but it should have something like this. For example, a hash, something of this sort. Yeah, GUID, globally unique identifier. So that kind of an option is going to be always good when you're creating a bucket. So let's try to implement that during this time. So there are tools available. So online GUID generator. So I can generate the tools easily. So let me just show you how I'm going to use it. So generate a GUID. This is my ID. I'm just going to create and mention it. So I'm following the best practice here. So no sensitive information. I put one hyphen. It cannot end with a hyphen. It can end with a number or it can end with a numeric letter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it as MR. What does MR stands for? Multi-region. Basically, that's what I wanted to show. So multi-region. Continue. So that's about the name itself. You have a naming convention to follow there. Always make sure you use something like this. Don't put your project ID as your bucket name. That's the most bad practice which you can do, because at any point of time, if this bucket needs to be exposed to the outside world, making the object public, you can easily see some the URL there. You can easily see that. So that's a bad practice. Click on continue. Now you get an option about the location type, whether you want multi-region, dual region. When you select multi-region, you see only 3 options are going to be there. Now multi-regional is what was mentioned in my slide. Now you see here it has multi-region. That AL missing, I'll explain you why. So first let's go with this option. Multi-region, you see it's only 3 multi-regions only you get it. Asia, EMEA, Europe. If I select dual region, we did not discuss this, recently added option. So when you see this dual region, you have dual regions, because when it is multi-region, right, you cannot keep sensitive information there. If there is something which is PI information and all, you cannot keep it, because the data is going to be replicated across 3 regions, which you will not have any clue where it is. You cannot get the details. But when you choose a dual region, you are very much sure the data needs to be replicated between Netherlands and Finland, uh, Tokyo and Osaka, Iowa and South Carolina. So you are very clear the data is going to be only between these 2. So in that case, you can use dual region. So for example, at least uh, if it is for a Japanese customer, they can leverage dual region to a fullest potential. It's never going to leave their country. Both Tokyo and Osaka are in Japan itself. They can use it. So maybe in future we may have something in Asia too, something like that, which is between Mumbai and Delhi. So where the data is replicated between 2 different regions. So that option you can get. And the last option which you have is region, which is going to be all the 24 regions grouped by the continent. In Asia, sorry, in Americas, you have these many. In Europe, you have, and in your Asia specific, you have these things. So different types, basically, based on the location type, your availability is going to change and the latency is going to change. Now let me make it as multi-region, and I'm going to choose Asia. Choose Asia. Click on continue. Now it shows standard, nearline, cold line, archive. Where is that multi-regional and regional option? So previously it was called as multi-regional and regional. From last March 2020, Google changed the naming convention. So if you just mouse over on your standard, it will show standard has been replaced, has replaced multi-regional and regional as the hot storage class in this form. This won't change your bucket cost or behavior, but if you rely on multi-regional and regional storage name classes, you can revert back to the earlier version of this form. The form is this web form, which they are saying. So some people are not comfortable. If you are not comfortable with the standard naming convention, you can change it, is what they say. So let me just first create it. Let me then create a multi-regional and show you. So difference wise, cost wise, nothing is going to be there. It's only how much you're comfortable with it, basically. So people who are learning GCP for the first time, you can use standard, you can continue using standard. But if you go, after you become a cloud architect, you go and look into an existing project which was implemented in 2019 time, you will never see something like standard. You will see multi-regional or regional. So at least you should be aware of that. So that was the reason I had put it in the slide. And uh, I'm not pretty much comfortable with mentioning standard as a storage class. Why? I will tell you by doing this demonstration. Okay. So continue. We are left the storage class like this. When you continue, you have some access controls, fine grain or uniform. So if you give fine grain at an individual object level, you can give access. Who should get access to what at an individual object? If you put it as uniform, it's going to apply to all the objects in the bucket. So I would prefer to use fine grain so I can control it to the fullest potential. Micromanagement. Under the next setting, which is an advanced option, which is optional, you don't need to do anything, folks. encryption is turned on by default. So no configuration required. You have two other options called as customer managed encryption key, customer supplied encryption key. So customer managed encryption key is shown in the screen. Customer supplied encryption key is not shown in the screen for some various reasons, but we can do it via gsutil command. So maybe next week I'll show you that demonstration when we talk about more on encryption. But when you create any bucket, all these times when the bucket was created, there was an encryption which was already turned on. That was a default encryption. So this is turned on by default, no action required. Then you have other few options called as retention policy. So this is like putting a lock on your bucket. Say if you set this retention policy for a minimum number of duration, this bucket must be protected from deletion or modification after they have been uploaded. So this is, for example, take a typical use case. There's an organization where they are using GCP. They keep all their balance scorecard, all those things in Google Cloud storage. All of a sudden, this bank gets into some legal litigation. So now nobody should go and delete or change the data which is there in this bucket. What will you do is you'll put a legal hold. You just turn on the retention policy saying that for how many days or how many seconds or how many years you can go. So you can put for 100 years you can put a retention policy so that nobody will going to delete the content. So if you put this retention policy, they cannot delete it. It's like a legal hold. So once this years of this thing is over, you can go and delete your content, do any modification. So a protection act is what I would say. This is usually called as legal hold. So I had worked on some certain stuffs in the past. So the term which they use is legal hold. So maximum is 100 years is what you, okay, 99 is what you
So,
can have.
Mahesh, we can modify, right? I mean, we cannot delete, but we can modify, right?
No, nothing can be done. Delete or modify. Protect from deletion or modification. Lock. You put a lock. It's like making an object read only, where you cannot do any file read only. You cannot do any changes. So you, it's going for so that avoid people changing the content. That's the whole purpose. So, and when you put this lock, right, or retention policy, you cannot delete the bucket also, meaning you should keep in mind this year. Now, once you do this lock it, whatever you do, you cannot delete the bucket unless you delete the entire project. I've never tried that, deleting a project and seeing it, what's going to happen. But you don't have any option except deleting the project. So you should be very cautious when you are turning on this. The reason is you are going to incur cost. You're going to incur cost monthly, because if you put it for 10 years you're going to incur cost for this, assuming the project is going to run. So putting this number is going to be very important, and you should discuss and then do this. Then you have, similarly to your virtual machine, you had labels, right? You can use labels. This is going to help you for building purpose. So like how we were putting labels like environment, this is for dev, and what kind of data, who is the owner. So you can put all those things. Owner of this bucket is a financial team, finance. So our payroll, who is the owner of this bucket. So you can add this kind of labels basically. So those are the forms which you have seen. Currently we have selected standard, which we have not heard much. Multi-region is what we have chosen. Let me now click on create. I'll come to this pricing calculator. Now I have my stuff there. I will not upload anything. Uploading is easy. Now look at this one. This is your bucket created. Now the problem with that storage class being standard is very difficult to understand. The reason is, for a minute, I'm going to remove this location type. And location. If I have something like this saying that this bucket is standard, now you have no clue whether it is region or multi-region. It becomes very difficult. So you have to go look into your location type. Only then you can comment, yes, it is a standard, it is a multi-region. So it's a multi-region. So without relying on this location type, I cannot comment here. It's going to become difficult. So this is the challenge with using this storage class. So that's the reason I totally avoid this standard. So any new projects, if you're going to do, you can use standard if you're okay with it, or if you're not comfortable with it, do something like this. Let me create one more with the older style. Let me generate a new one. So this is my -mr. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to fill any of these forms, but I will go to choose default storage class, and there's a question mark where it indicates standard has been replaced with regional and multi-regional. I'll click on revert form, folks. If I click on revert form, the UI itself will change. It's going to become very simple, where you mention the bucket name, done, mention your storage class. Now you see what we saw in our slides: multi-regional, regional, nearline, cold line, archive. Okay, so I'm going to use multi-regional. The moment I say multi-regional, what is going to show is, it's going to show one multi-region in US, dual region in US, one multi-region in US, one dual in Europe, one dual in Europe. Similarly, one multi-region in Asia, one dual in Tokyo or Asia. So it's going to show you that. So let me select Asia. Multi-regional storage class in which location? Asia. So that's it. And the remaining form is going to remain the same. The same stuffs which is going to remain. Now let me click on create. Now if I go back, you see the difference, folks. Both are same cost, no difference. And an empty bucket is not going to cost you, but if you upload 1 GB file in both the files, it's going to be 0.026 storage is the cost. But it's only the naming convention or the kind which you are going to use. But now if I just see something like this, if I see something like this, the moment I see it's multi-regional, I'm 100% sure it's a multi-regional storage class. So the standard is going to be a little confusing because they have clubbed together two types, multi-regional and regional. It's going to be a little confusing. So that's the reason I always avoid using this. Is this making sense, folks? And when you go look into any older implementations, you may see multi-regional only. And you should not think Mahesh did not teach us at that time. So just wanted to show you this option. You take a call which one you want to use. I prefer to use this one so that it's easy for me to see it's multi-regional. If this is clear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete this bucket. What I'm going to do is, you saw once how do you create it. Let me once more show you a creation of this in the console itself, where we will focus more on the price part. Price part. Let me create it one more time. That's it. Continue. I'm just going to change the form here, folks, so that it's easy for me to show you that. Now, if I choose multi-regional, look at the cost, folks. Storage cost 0.026 per GB per month. Data retrieval free. There is something called as class A, class B operations. So if you just mouse over, class is basically write operations. Class B is all read operations. So they are going to be charged per 1,000 operations. So per 1,000 operation, it's going to be a cost is going to be there. You get an SLA, which we saw in our slide, 99.95. Now, if I make it as regional, you see the cost drops. The storage cost drops. Data retrieval is free. Your SLA drops. If I make it as near line, you see the storage cost drops still, but your data retrieval cost from 0 or free, it becomes there's a cost. And the SLA also drops. The SLA keeps dropping. So that way you're pricing easily in this. So this is one of the cool features. At least in the UI itself, we'll come to know what is the price. So maybe in future for every product, if they can add this, it's going to be awesome. So we have seen this kind of a product or price estimate for virtual machines only. Now we are seeing storage. So we were never seeing it for Kubernetes. We are never seeing it for App Engine, cloud and cloud functions. So what this is a good feature, I would say. If I go to archive, the storage cost is going to be very, very short or very, very less. But your data retrieval cost is going to be very high. And archive does not have an SLA, folks. You cannot expect an SLA for archive storage class. It's the coldest one, so you don't expect an SLA there. So it's not that the data is going to be lost. It's going to be there, but you cannot claim for any SLA lost, basically. That's the indication. So any questions on this, folks? Still the price part. So you can, if you don't remember it, you can just go to the form and you can keep doing it and you'll come to know. And sometimes the price is going to be little different in different regions. So maybe multi-region, at least now Google has made it simple. So US 0.026. If I use European Union, same thing. If I use Asia, same thing, no difference. But when I go to regional and I choose US Central, 0.0 ticks, 0.02, 0.0, sorry, 0.020, sorry, 0.020. If I make it as Singapore, it is same. Mumbai, let me see whether they have changed it. Yeah, you see Mumbai, folks. Regional storage class, if it's in US Central, it is 0.02. If it is in Mumbai, it is going to be 0.023. The reason is, any reason why do you think why it is slightly high in Mumbai? Any reason, folks? You can see the similar thing in some other regions also. Tokyo, it is the same, high. Jakarta, it is same. Osaka, Taiwan. Cost of the data data center ownership. Yes, a very simple example with the current stuff I can say is either an iPhone example or a petrol example. So if it's iPhone in US is going to be cheaper. When it comes to India, it's going to be expensive. It has various reasons. On the similar lines, if you see here, the taxation, the labor cost in every country is going to be different. The taxation is going to be different because they are going to have a data center, the real estate, the labor cost, the electricity cost, all those things are going to be different. So based on the country to country, it's going to vary. So that's the reason you see that difference in cost. Every cloud, the major cloud has the same problem. So maybe in India, it's going to be expensive, but if you go to some other US part, it's going to be cheaper. So you will see that difference. But one cloud which I saw, which is same, irrespective of which region you host it, the cost is going to be same. That cloud is Oracle cloud infrastructure. So because they started late, they're trying to position with some better options there. So, but when it comes to Oracle, they keep the same cost. So which is a cool feature, I would say. So just wanted to mention this price part so that you are aware of it. So now let me create multi-region US, continue, created. Done. So our first bucket, which is multi-region, created. Remaining everything, we are going to create it via command line. So the command to create your bucket is gsutil. We know that, right? But there are some flags which you need to send, or specifiers which you need to send. Otherwise, it's going to always create. So if I just create a bucket with all the default setting, it's always going to create a multi-regional storage class in US. That's the default one. So if you don't send anything, meaning, remember we used to create something like this, right? gsutil make bucket uh, default values. So if I just do this, which not sending any details, it's always going to be US and multi-regional. And this is the thing which those data engineers which I mentioned, where I worked in one organization, they used to do it. So it's going to be in US multi-regional. So the default storage class, they keep it as standard. So don't make this mistake. Always specify what is the storage class. Don't do that mistake. Always create it with the right specifications. So what are those specifications? Let me just mention you. So first is basically the class. What is the class? The class is the storage class, multi-regional. This is the class. You can mention multi-regional. Then when you mention multi-regional, you have to mention it as what is the location. And the location can be US, EMEA, or Asia. So these two parameters, make sure you always mention it. So I'm going to call this as R, regional one. Oh, sorry, multi. Okay, let me create multi-regional here. So multi-regional, I'm just going to call this as CLI, folks. CLI, this thing. So minus C is your class, minus L is your location. So it should get created. So if I just refresh, no difference. Both the first one which we created, just left it with default, so it is in US. Now here we specified Asia, it has created in Asia. So I can just delete it. This one, I don't need it. I'll also delete this one for a reason. Now let me create it one more time. I don't want to mention CLI. That's it. Multi-regional storage class in Asia. Now, if I want to create something which is regional, I'm just going to use the same naming, but minus R, just to indicate it is regional. So here I mentioned this thing as regional. And the location has to be a region out of those 24 regions which we have. So like Singapore or Mumbai, you have to mention it. You can mention that and create it. Created. We have created a regional, you see this? Regional storage class. In which region? Singapore. So now let me create a nearline storage class. So now you should have got the trick how to do it. Now One thing with your nearline storage class is you have two capabilities. Nearline MRNL. A nearline storage class can be multi-regional. It can be also regional. Both are possible. So if you want to keep your backups in one region, you go with region. If you want backup to be saved in multiple regions, you can have a multi-regional nearline storage class. Both are possible. So it is only controlled by your location, what you are mentioning. So if I just do this, it's going to be a nearline storage class, which is multi-regional. Let me just show you. Done. Refresh it. You see it's nearline. But the location, when you look into, it's going to be multi-regional. So it's going to be a good fit to keep my backup across multiple regions. But if you feel no, the backup has some sensitive data, I cannot have it in multiple regions, no problem. Just have in a region and mention it as a regional one. Is this part clear, folks? I'm just going to hold on here to make it. Is there any questions here? So the near line can be multi-regional or regional, basically. This has to be very clear. If it's a regional one, it's always regional only. Multi-regional, multi-regional. So, but when it comes to the nearline storage class, it has two flavors. Any questions on this, folks? Any questions on this, folks? I wanted to stop here for a minute. Any questions on this part? Class A is all for write, class B is all for read operations. That's right. What are those? We will discuss it in our next class. There are some details I'm going to show you. So you want to repeat. So a nearline storage class can have a presence in multiple regions. Basically a backup, which is not sensitive data, but is very critical production data, but it's not containing any sensitive information, but it's very critical. So I want to replicate it in Taiwan, Tokyo, and in Sydney. So if that is the kind of a requirement, I'm going to make it as a nearline multi-region storage class. If it is a backup, which I need to keep, but it's a sensitive information, so I cannot leave the country, then I'm going to keep it as nearline regional storage class. So is that clear, Mangesh now? So nearline can have both regional or multi-regional. So it can have both options. So class B part, we'll talk about it, Kumar, later. Why it is charging if the select freeze. There are certain costs which is going to be there. So we'll discuss that in our next class. So that's always a confusing one. How we are going to access it. Depending on that, you have a charge there. Class B and the download option or the retrieval, there's always a confusion. Many people get it. We'll discuss more on that. There's a slide specifically on that. We'll talk at that time. So if there's any other question, so for simplicity reason, I'm going to remove it. The multi-region nearline, I'm going to remove it. I'm just going to keep it in one region. It's an empty bucket. I can delete it. So I will have any. I'll not have any penalty here. So we have nearline. Sorry, multi-regional, regional, nearline. Now we have two more stuffs left. Let's finish that. So I'll call this as region cold line. Now it becomes so easy for you to demystify it, right? It creates a cold line. If just you have your cold line, and that is regional or in a specific region. Then we have the last one, AR, which is our archive. So one single API with just passing an extra parameter, I'm able to interact with all the different storage classes. So this was the key part which I wanted to highlight. We are not exploring multiple stuffs like to handle storage, to handle cold data, I have to learn something new. No, just mention the class. You're all good. That's it. So all the 5 storage classes which we saw in our slide, we have created it here. We have created it here. If I were to sort it by creation date, let me sort it by creation date. Multi-regional, regional, nearline, whole line, archive. All are empty buckets. Empty buckets. Now, what I will do is I wanted to show that access time concept, right? So, irrespective of the storage class, access time is always going to be in milliseconds, and an acceptable milliseconds is what I wanted to show. So, for that, what I will do is I will upload an object, and it's always good to do a apple to apple comparison. Same object, I'm going to upload it to all the buckets. Okay, so I have an image, a Wikipedia image which is 1 MB. So this is the image. So I'm just going to download this and upload it to my Google Cloud Storage. Copy. So I can download it using wget. File is downloaded. It's in my this thing. So I'm just going to name it as image dot png, sorry, jpeg, just to make it easy for me to copy it. Now what I'm going to do is I will list all my buckets, gsutil ls. So what I'll do is I'll just going to copy it to all the buckets. Now you may say we can use gsutil copy command. That's what we are going to use. Copy image. This is how I copy it. Simple. But if you feel every bucket we have a small convention, it's only that last few letters are changing. Can we use a wildcard? People will ask this question. Before you ask it, let me answer it. So if I put wildcard, what's going to happen is it's going to not work. It's going to say you have to copy it to an explicit bucket only. Please don't copy it to multiple buckets is what it's going to say. So if I try it also, it's going to throw me an error. Must be exactly one URL, no wildcard. Okay. So meaning I have to do this 5 times. Copy it. R. I'm just copying it. Same file. RK NL CL. So now the file is copied. If you want to see whether it is there in all those objects, now what you can do is you can put like this and list it. It's going to show you. I've never tried whether list is going to work with wildcard. Let's give a try. There's no harm trying it. Awesome. So the list works. The listing works on all the buckets because we have followed a convention. The listing works, but the copy is not going to work. So you cannot. So copy is from one source to one-to-one copy. So it is not one to many copy. So that's the reason it does not work. So good. Now what I'm going to do is I'll go to the console. Go to the console. Just verify the object is not public. what I will do is I'll make this object public. So I'll make this object public. So for that, what I will do basically is click on this 3 dots, edit permission. I'm going to add one entry. What is that entry? An entry called as public. Sorry, cancel. 1 minute. They change the UI. So edit permission, add an entry public. Okay. Okay, that's okay. The UI folks. When I click on public, you're going to give a access, reader access or owner access. Reader is always better. And what is this public means? All users, all internet users who have access to internet, they can access it. Or you have options like who are authenticated. They should have logged into Gmail at least. So you have two options when it comes to public. So let's make it to everybody. Save it. Now the moment I do it, it becomes public, meaning it's going to have a URL. I can also type here and see it. Now what do you see from that URL, folks? What do you see from that URL? Anything which you can demystify from that URL? The flower is okay. It's a flower. Anything else from the GCP perspective? Now, if I have of my bucket name, yes, Shripal, the bucket name is disclosed, folks. Now, if I had used done the mistake of putting my project ID, a hacker will come to know my project ID directly, right? So we use our best practice to avoid that. So which nobody can now easily use it, and it's still unique. So this is the reason why we use that GUID format. Okay. Now I need to do the same thing for remaining 4 buckets. Doing it in the UI is going to be time consuming. So I'm going to switch to my command line. And this is where you will see the value of command lines. So where you can do certain things in a more automated fashion. So you don't go click, 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 all those things. So how do I do the change? So I have to use basically this one. What you did was at a specific object. Only a specific object you went and changed it. So this is in GCP called as ACL, access control list. Uh, in Windows also you see, right, NT file system. So you can have ACLs at a specific file folder. The same thing is what is being applied done here also. ACLs, access control list. But if you were to give access to the bucket, what would you prefer, folks? If I want to give access to somebody to this bucket itself, what will I do? What will I do, folks? If I want to give this access to ABC user, what will I do? Give an IAM policy. That's it. Create a not create a role. Role is already there. Storage admin, storage object viewer. Assign the user that access. So just click on show info panel, add a member, give him a specific role, object viewer, storage admin, something like that. You just need to assign an IAM role, do the binding, and you should be all. So you should be able to give him the access or her the access, basically. Now we have 4 more buckets, and I have to make all the objects, those specific objects, public. So what I will do is I will use a command called as gsutil. All these commands are in the cheat sheet, folks. So you don't need to worry. It's all there in the cheat sheet. I myself am referring to the cheat sheet and I'm typing it. So there's no hiding here. So ACLs, access control list, is what you are going to use. And you want to change the ACL list where you are going to mention, give it to this user, all users. It could be like this, or it could be all in small letters. No casing importance is there, so you can put anything. And for all users, I want to be a reader, is what I'm trying to do. So I'm doing an ACL update where I'm going to give all users reader access to what bucket or which object. So I'm going to do something like this. Star.image.png. I'm going to use wildcard. Now, and how many buckets it's going to apply? It's going to basically apply on all the 5 buckets. So in one of the bucket already the ACL is applied. The access control is already applied. So what it's going to show, nothing changed. But for the remaining stuffs, it's going to apply. This ACL change which you're doing, right? This is a class A operation. You are applying it, and 5 times you have done it. That's what is going to happen. So let me hit enter. So it got update. First one you see multi-regional, no change. Then for regional, archive, cold line, near line, it is showing up. It has been updated. But there's one beautiful feature which GS Util shows. It shows that you are performing some sequence of operations. It can be done much faster if you use a parameter called as -m. This is for multi-threading folks. So the sheet is already there, Deepak. If you just go to the common folder, the Google Drive you have access, right? Go to common folder and you should be able to see the cheat sheet. So, and I had already revoked access and given to you once, so you should be able to see it. There's one more question. Can we have the timestamp over the bucket object, like when it was created, when we list them in command line? So, okay, when you list it, you want to know the time, this thing. So there's an option. I can show you that. I'll show you that. So here, the gsutil command immediately looks if you're doing some sequence of operation on lots of objects, it's going to say better use -m. This is going to turn on multi-threading. So which could be an important one. In the exam, even sometimes they ask you questions like this, folks. gsutil, the minus command, should it be after ACLs or before ACLs? So the trick is simple. gsutil -m is always the standard command because you are multi-threading the entire process. What is the process which you're doing? Changing in ACLs. So, or if you want to copy it, it has to be gsutil -m cp. So anything which you're going to do in a multi-threaded fashion in gsutil should be in this form. Where is my cheat sheets? This could be a possible question. Looks very silly, but sometimes they may expect you to have that. Run gsutil multi-threaded fashion, then to run use gsutil -m. For example, gsutil gs, for example, gsutil -m cp for copying, doing multi-threading. Then command which you want to multi-thread it, just util -m ACL. You can do it. So you can do it. Now add. Now we run the ACL. So every object is now publicly available. Every object is publicly available, and we know the URL also. So to know the URL, if you just go, there's a URL, I can copy it. Now what I'm going to do now is just going to do a small demonstration to see how quickly I can access it. So this is the public URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a command called as time curl, silently download it and show me the time. This is the command which I'm going to run, folks. Curl -s -o. So it's going to just show me how long it takes to download this file. Okay, so let me just do this. It takes 182 milliseconds because it's multi-regional accepted. Now let me do the same thing for regional one. It's a regional one. Let's see how much fast it's going to come. Shorter, good, but still in milliseconds. Now let me make it as, hope I remember bucket name. To remove the created date for a minute. R and LC. Okay, just add those things and it should be all good. Minus NL, near line. This is an important thing. Region, multi-region, okay. The time which it takes was acceptable. Near line, which is a long term, let's see how long it takes. Still decent. Still decent. So now if I do it for cold line, this is to indicate that access time is in milliseconds usually. So cold line 85, still a decent one. And the last one, which is archive, I have to clear the screen. Archive 93. So consistent. I would say it did not make much difference when it comes to the different storage classes. The access time was always in milliseconds, which was a cool feature. Now I want to show you one more cool feature. Now this is an archive storage class. When I sent a request, this is my retrieval cost. I have retrieved it, so I'm going to have a cost for it, right? Now second time when I do it, it's going to be a second time cost is what you may think. But since I made this object as public, there's a feature which Google provides. If you have a storage bucket and in that bucket there's an object which is public, irrespective of what is the storage class. If you make an object public, it's going to be cached for 1 hour. Every 1 hour, it's going to be cached. So meaning if I now hit it one more time, from 20 milliseconds, it dropped to 30 seconds. And it is coming from a CDN, content delivery network. So if I retrieve it one more time, it's going to be lesser. It's cached. So till 1 hour, I can retrieve this archive object n number of times. I'll not be charged. There's no retrieval cost for me. But if you see in reality, nobody is going to make an archive object public. But the whole intention of me showing this demonstration was the access time. The access time is always in milliseconds, and it's somewhat which you can see it is very quick. It's not slow when it is archive. It is not super fast when it is multi-regional. So that is the main message, and everything you are able to access it using single API itself, GS util, or the same console. REST API is also going to be the same thing. Now let me answer one question from where he wanted to see the object creation date, all those things. So if you were to do that, so if I just do something like this, it's going to show me this thing. So if I put minus L, it's going to show me the details about the bucket, when it was created, when it was updated. Minus capital L is the one which you are going to use it to know when was the bucket created. Now, if you go inside the bucket and put it, you're going to get the creation date of the object. So let me just put it. Minus L. If I go inside this bucket, so I'll come to know the details completely. One of the attribute is when it was created and updated. Hope that answers your question, Aman. So how do you get the timestamp over the bucket object? So minus L is what you should do, right? So that's it. We did a good job. Now let's make the object normal back to not public, we'll make it not public. So private. How do I do it? So I have to use the same ACL command. So I'm going to use first gsutil ACL command itself. gsutil ACL. Last time we added it. Now this time we wanted to remove it. So -d is to remove the stuff. Which user? All users. I can put it in whatever fashion I want. It's going to work. Okay. Remove all users. And for which bucket? For all the buckets, I want to remove it. So what I'll use this wildcard. I'll use this wildcard and mention the image name. I can do it. If I do it, it's going to work, but it's going to again show me that message. Looks like you're doing in a sequence. Why don't you multi-thread it? I try it. Let's put -m. Let's try it, whether it's going to work or not. Done. It got updated, and if you see, it was little faster. It was in 4 or something of that, 4 times like faster kind of a stuff. And every object is now back to normal state, which is non-public, sorry, private. So if you want to verify it, go to any bucket. It's not public. It's not public. That's it. So last thing, let's clean up the resource, folks. Let's clean up the resource and stop it for today. So, and if there's any question, I'm happy to answer it. So we need to delete it. So let's try to do this part because anyway, we did it everything in UI. Deleting in the UI is very simple. You just go delete the bucket, it's going to go. But if I were to do it in the command line, gsutil, the only reason is who knows what kind of questions can come. So be prepared for everything. So if I do MB is for make bucket. If I do RB, it is for remove bucket. And if you want to delete a specific object, you can use RM. So all your Linux commands are going to come into picture. So let me do gsutil RM and mention this object. Hit enter. It's going to remove the object. Object is removed. Now this bucket, if you go look into your bucket, the bucket is going to empty bucket. If it is an empty bucket, let me repeat. If it's an empty bucket, can easily delete with a command called as remove bucket RB. It has to be an empty bucket. Then it's going to delete. But if it's a bucket which is not empty, there are some objects in it. If you try to do RB, it's not going to work. It's going to show 409 error, empty bucket, not an empty bucket. First you have to empty it, then only you have to do it. So if you don't want to do 2 steps, you can do your normal Linux command. Recursively remove everything and the bucket also. This -R is going to help you out. Remove the objects and delete the bucket also. So first removing the object, then the bucket. Done. So if you just go and refresh it, you will not have the 2 buckets. Only 3 are going to be there. You see that? Now I don't want to do it every time. So let me put my wildcard and see whether it's going to work. My hunch it should work is my if I'm not wrong. So let me just do this. Done. Everything is done. So if I now go back and type gsutil ls, 0 items will be there. Nothing is going to be there. So it's a clean slate. You started with clean slate. You ended the day with a clean slate. So that when I start next week, it's going to be clean again there. And if I by mistake uploaded a very huge object, I'm not going to incur any cost if I'm not going to visit my console till the next Saturday. Okay, so that was something to share about the various storage class. How do you access it? How do you play around with it? So we'll stop it here. Next week, when we resume back, we will start looking into our class A, class B operations. What are the various details, and what is the difference between class A and data retrieval cost, which Kumar was asking. We'll discuss it in next class. Okay, so we'll stop it here, folks. I wanted to keep it for some questions, so don't want to go till 10 o'clock and ask for questions. Any questions on this stuff which we learned so far, folks? Any questions?
So Mahesh, if I don't have any object in the near line or code line, then I can delete. I no need to wait for 30 days or 90 days, right?
Perfect. Yes, you can. An empty bucket is not going to cost you anything. Only the object inside that is going to cost you. Now I just deleted it, right? So I'm
Yeah.
going to incur a penalty. I'm going to see a penalty in my invoice saying that you deleted an object uh, which was archive, which was code line and this thing. So, but the cost is going to be very, very small because my object size itself was very small. But I have to pay a penalty there if there's an object.
Okay.
But an empty bucket, you can delete it. You are not going to be charged. It's just a placeholder. That's it. The bucket is just a placeholder. What you will be charged is the objects inside it. Any other questions, folks?
Yeah, hi, Mahesh Ankit here.
Yeah, Ankit.
So Mahesh, on this slide, I feel like little bit confusing. As you have mentioned that this is a cloud storage class, and we have just the three cloud storage class like a nearline, code line, and archive. But this multi-region and regional is like a, I mean to say that out of this five, we have to select the two to create the bucket.
Uh,
I mean out
the,
of multi-region and regional also we need to select one, and from this storage class also. So I mean, slide is little confusing, don't you think? I mean, out of this
uh,
five, we have to...
storage classes are 5. Is that part first clear?
Okay. So, no,
So if
I had a feeling that a storage class is like a three, nearline, code line, and archive.
no, 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 no. So let me just show you. Let me just get one minute. Storage class is not 3. It is either 4 or 5.
Okay, then
So if
it's
I
correct, I
just
guess.
use this,
I thought actually it was...
yeah, let me just, no, 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 let me show. So this is your, you see this default storage class for your data. So it has to be standard, which is a
Okay.
combination of multiple region,
Mm.
multi-regional or regional, then your nearline, cold line, archive. So to
Okay.
get a complete picture, you have to use both
So,
the stuffs. What is the location and
uh,
what is the storage class? That's going to give you a
okay.
better complete picture.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah. You got confused with your location, maybe the location type.
Yeah. Correct, actually. So,
Uh,
location has to
yeah.
be also obviously I mean, specified.
Yes.
Otherwise, yeah. Okay.
Yes. Any other questions, folks? No questions?
Excuse me, Mahesh, Vivek
Yeah,
this
wait.
side. I think rsync you will cover by next week, no?
Sorry?
rsync, rsync command
rsync also works. Yeah. GSUTL rsync.
means and how to transfer, how to sync folder from a local, I mean SDK to your on-premises server. I'm sorry.
Huh.
This is
So
by using async?
I'll show you that. I'll show you that. So we are going to discuss all those things. We just started Google Cloud Storage. So using GSUtil rsync, you should be able to sync between two buckets or between an VM and a bucket. So you can use GSUtil. So there's an option for you to this rsync. How do you sync between two buckets? It is possible, or between a VM and a bucket. That is also possible. We'll talk about that. So this was a first class, so I did not directly go into it. So we just started seeing how to provision it, how to play around with it, and how to dismantle it. We'll discuss those things. Any other questions, folks? Class A, all those things, we'll discuss it in next class because it's going to be a little tricky there. And little confusing. So I don't want you to rush it towards the last minute and you people miss it out. I don't want to do that. All right. If there's no question for the next 1 minute, I'll assume it's good and we can stop it for the day. All right. Looks like no questions. So we'll stop it for the day, folks. So expect a mail from me for the recordings and you should be able to see it. You can, if you want, you can look back into the recordings when you want. All right. Have a great week ahead. See you on next Saturday, folks. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.